A very warm good afternoon to one and all joining this meeting. So I'm CA Vishali Ahuja, working as a corporate banker since past 4.5 years. We are delighted to welcome you all in the 10th VCM of the series Beating the Monday Blues, being organized by Continuing Professional Education Committee of ICAI. I would like to start this session by expressing my gratitude towards all the members of CPE Committee of ICAI for giving me this opportunity. Continuing professional education is a means by which members of the profession maintain, improve, and broaden their knowledge, skills, and develop qualities required for sustainable growth. The ICAI has been providing continued inputs to its members through seminars, lectures, web-based training, web-based lectures, workshops, technical trainings, e-literatures, e-learning, web-based training, etc. The CPE committee has been providing continued inputs to its members through seminars. The CPA committee has launched 360-degree learning series focused on updating current core areas of CA practice. Hence, we heartily welcome you to the VCM on decoding CSR and artificial intelligence in our profession. I would like to invite Chairman of Ratlam branch of CIRC of ICAI, CA Dipendra Chopra ji, for further continuing this session.
Thank you. Very good noon to all of you. Sabhi ko सादर अभिवादन. It is great pleasure for Ratlam branch and me to welcome all of you in today's VCM. Today's VCM is organized by the CP Committee of ICI and hosted by the Ratlam branch of Central Division of ICI. The chairperson of CP Committee, she is symbol of women empowerment in ICI, dynamic Central Council member, our own respected Kemisa Ji Soni, Vice Chairman of CP Committee, an energetic personality. Sir, आपकी शेरो शायरीज always give some inspiration and motivation to all of us. Respected Nanda sir, both the learned speaker of today's VCM, CA Ujjwal ji Jindal and CA Narsimhan ji, moderator CA Vesali Ahuja ji, and all my professional colleagues, brothers and sisters from across the country. On behalf of the Ratlam branch, I extend a warm welcome to all of you in today's VCM. Friends, the first topic of today's VCM is based on CSR and mainly cover a complete guide to the section 135 of the Companies Act and the government efforts for the effective CSR activities, which is being taken by CA Ujjwal ji Jindal. The another topic of today's cover the concept of artificial intelligence and how this is being used in our profession, the impact of artificial intelligence on accounting and audit, and which is being taken by CA Narsimhan ji. I hope and believe that the knowledge which will be shared by both the learned speaker will definitely enhance our professional efficiency and will be useful in fulfilling our professional obligation in more effective and efficient manner in coming period. Once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Over to Vaishali.
I would now like to invite Vice Chairman of Ratlam branch of CARCI of ICAI, CA Ankit Bhamecha ji, for taking the session forward from here onward.
Thank you so much, Vaishali ji. I'm audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce our chairman of CP committee, Ms. CA Kamisha Soni ji. CA Kamisha Soni is a chairperson of CP committee and women members empowerment committee and vice chairperson of ethical standard boards and also serving her second consecutive term in the Central Council of ICAI. She is actively participating in various activities in international forums. Having remarkable leadership skills, she is many first to her credits as such distinct of being first woman chairperson of CIRC, first woman chairperson of Board of Studies of ICAI. On account of her immense contribution to the accounting profession and society, she has been honored with many awards. Owing to her vast experience, professional expertise, and sharp acumen, she was served as a director of board of many companies. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. We welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now I would request Mr. CA Charanjot Singh sir Vice Chairman of CPE Committee of ICAI, who is also the Chairman of Internal Audit Standard Boards.
Madam, the honor is of the chairman first. So let her speak first, then I will comment. Let the
Okay.
chairman first speak. This is the protocol.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Nandaji.
Thank you,
Very
madam.
good evening. Very good evening and greetings, everyone. I welcome all esteemed participants of today's VCM, our very active and dynamic co-chairman CP committee, CA Charanjot Singh Ji Nandaji, who is also chairman of Internal Audit Standard Board and Committee on Management Accounting. Our very renowned and experienced faculty for today's VCM, CA Ujjwal Ji from Delhi and CA Narsimhan Ji from Bangalore. I also welcome leaders from our branch, Ratlam branch, very active and dynamic, I would say, branch of Central India Regional Council, Chairman, CA Dipendra Chopra Ji, CA Ankit Barmecha Ji, Vice Chairman, Secretary Amit Vachani Ji, Treasurer Ritesh Ji, and Sikasa Chairman Arpit Sharma Ji, and also all members of Ratlam branch, our moderator, CA Vaishali, from our office side, Ajit Ji, Hina ji, Chanda ji, Payal, Deepika ji, and Shrija ji, and dear participants, I would say esteemed member of our prestigious institute. I am delighted to welcome you in this 10th VCM of this learning series of online CP event, Beating the Monday Blues. Our eminent speakers will talk about decoding CSR and artificial intelligence in our profession. I am glad to inform you all that this VCM has been webcasted throughout the country and huge number of registration we received for this program. And I'm extremely happy to share that CPE had taken initiative and launched these two CPE learning series. One is 360-degree learning series, Wednesday Words of Wisdom on every Wednesday, and another one is Beating the Monday Blues on every Monday. In two different type of series we have started, and in 360-degree learning series, I would say, and I will give entire credit to our co-chairman Nandaji, because he is designing related to topic. He is suggesting us related to our topic that are related to totally professional areas, core professional areas. And a second one series related to Beating the Monday Blues. Under that series, we are taking entire different type of thought related themes and topics. For example, digital marketing, how you can develop your practices, and new professional areas we are taking in that series. So we have covered so many different kind of topic in Beating the Monday Blues series. So I would request all members, if you missed that particular theme series and programs, so you can watch our recording also that we have already uploaded. And also under CP committee, we have designed standardized programs related to senior chartered accountant, young members, and women chartered accountant. Also, we have compiled more than 100 professional opportunity in our VCM. And in that particular series, in next month also, our focus will be on totally new professional opportunity, emerging professional opportunity we are taking through our this Monday Beating the Monday Blues series. And also we have launched Samadhan CP question and answer e-solution forum. So already we have launched taxation issues in share transactions and also taxations related to partnership. So our member can send their queries related to that, because we are extending that for next week also regarding this two topic. So member have any query members, so they may send there at our portal. And I would also like to share one different initiative, that is our CA Connect search engine portal. So this is ICAI has launched under Ethical Standard Board on 31st July. So this is our own system of listing for chartered accountant firms. And benefit of registration of on this CA Connect search engine portal is this portal will provide the essential bridge between clients and chartered accountant. And also the prospective clients can search the services offered by our chartered accountant firms and members based on their areas of expertise under one roof, irrespective of their geographical location. So this portal is a platform which provides choice to client for selection of CA forms and member as per their need. So outside world can search according to their need for our chartered accountant. So I would request every chartered accountant just registered on CA Connect at ICAI.org on search engine, our own search engine portal, aggregator based listing portal. So that is our new initiative. And about the today's sessions about decoding CSR. So really in CSR also so many professional opportunities are there for our chartered accountant, whether in the form of as per Companies Act requirement, as per as our chartered accountant can be advisor also, consultant also, and compliance area also they may cover. So under that, so many opportunities are there, and we have our own CSR committee is also there, and certificate courses are also there. So our chartered accountant can see in as a different professional opportunity format also. And about second topic, artificial intelligence in our profession. So nowadays, all businesses and corporates are using AI in their day-to-day business. So in our professions also, according to that, these changes are there, and we are also using AI in our day-to-day audit profession also. So this topic is also very relevant because real-time data helps accountant to give real-time solution. Data analytics also in that sense also. So today we have with us eminent faculty for AI in our profession, CA Narsimanji, and in sessions related to CSR, we have with us CA Ujwalji. Now, not taking much time, I wish a happy learning experience to all the participants and handing over to moderator Vaishaliji.
Thank you so much, Chairman ma'am. Further, I would request Mr. Nanda sir, CS Nanda sir, to take us through more and to take us through the this session and give us more insights about the stuff, since he is an avid speaker and he has been part of many events organized by ICAI and other institutes, even global reputed institutes. Over to Nanda sir.
Thank you so much, Vaishali. I would like to thank the chairman, Madam Kamisha Soni, for a very scintillating introduction. I can see CA Dipender Chopra from Ratlam, the Honorable Chairman. I can see my younger brother, CA Ujwal Jindal, a man who is a master of CSR. I am mobile and may not be able to acknowledge many people, but I want to acknowledge participants who have come here to go home and attend. I want to thank CA Ankit Barmeda, who is there to speak to all of us. I want to thank the moderator also, Madam Vaishali Ahuja, and all who have come here to go home or enlightened. Ladies and gentlemen, the committee is very passionate to ensure that we have the best of the topics that are chosen for people who intend to start their own practice. People who are into practice but want to change into a non-traditional area. So first of all, the topic which is very, very close to my heart is regarding decoding CSR, a move towards good corporate governance. Yes, we bought CSR initiative as a philanthropic initiative by the government of India. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs were very keen that the corporates lend their funds to those people who are underprivileged, and that is something which is really fantabulous, really fantastic. Second topic of the day is again a very pertinent topic which speaks on artificial intelligence in our profession, which is taken by CA Narsimhan Alan Govan, who hails from Bangalore. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just want to add a few things before I say goodbye to you. The first important thing, as chartered accountants, we need to understand that if we have got good technical knowledge, we overshine. There's an old couplet which says, "Chehre par noor tabhi aayega, chehre par noor tabhi aayega, jab andar ka hurur bahar aayega." And if you want to drive the ego inside out, you need to be proficient. You need to know the systems and you need to work in tandem. Ladies and gentlemen, professional opportunities are shrinking day by day. And we are very keen that chartered accountants, particularly in practice, are introduced to newer areas where they put in their thought process, they hone their technical skills, and are ultimately introduced to greener pastures, where they start the entire life afresh. You have a astounding, you have a flourishing attest practice, let it be there. But I suggest to all people who are viewing this, please set up a non-attest area, may it be outsourcing, may it be technology, may it be forensics, may it be TV studies, may it be internal audits, may it be training also. Let me tell you, the government of India's budget is always lapse related to trainings, and there is need for chartered accountants to be there. Women chartered accountants are attending this for them. Being on board is very important, and there's a welcome move by MCA, which have now allowed that chartered accountants who are more than 10 years experience could come and take place and come onto the board. They can adore the boards, and this is for ladies also. And there is a lot of vacancy for ladies in listed companies which are government run. So one area where you can always excel is corporate governance. Corporate governance needs a great propelling by us, because we are the only profession. You're all aware that the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India was set up by Act of Parliament way back on 1st July 1949, when the most important document to the democracy, the Constitution, was not adopted. You are all well aware that the Constitution to this great country was adopted on 26 January 1950. The pertinent question that arises is, what prompted the government of India, the Constituent Assembly, to set up an Institute of Chartered Accountants when its own democratic setup was not in place? The answer is very candid, very simple, very forthcoming. They were looking for a disciplined band of soldiers to steer this country out of confusion. My dear friends, times have come. Now we have to outplay our roles. We have to create greater infrastructures where you can shine as a CA firm. The entire institute, the entire council is very resilient to provide you opportunities where you can do wonders. The second topic, again, is a great topic, artificial intelligence. When you speak of technology, you are strong. I'm reminded of Dr. Radhakrishnan, the first Prime President of India. He said, it is your will to soar as high as you can, but ensure that your feet are embedded deep into the soil below. और एक शेर भी आपकी नजर करूंगा इस पे, कहते हैं ना, तजुर्बा है मेरा, मिट्टी की पकड़ मजबूत होती है। तजुर्बा है मेरा, मिट्टी की पकड़ मजबूत होती है, संगमरमर पर तो हमने अक्सर पांव फिसलते देखे। Strongly embedded to the land below. We have that valor, we have that credence, we have that competence, we excel. Yet at times we want to take a back seat. I will request all of you, my friends, we are all born leaders. Becoming a chartered accountant is not a small thing. God has been kind that we have all become chartered accountants. And when you become a chartered accountant, the entire world is at your beck and call. But you need to take that call. You have to put a step forward and call, I want this. On technology, there are so many areas. So I specifically requested Mr. Narasimhan to speak on artificial intelligence in profession. There is a false notion among chartered accountants. We are not technology men. Yes, we are not technology men. We are not trained in technology, but we are drivers. We are managers. We can work at any perspective on anything. If you do internal audit, there is saying that you need to know your client's business. I want to tell you that more than 20% chartered accountants who are in service do the operational work, which has nothing to do with the chartered accountancy course. So we have that instinct, that rare mind to perform. I want to again request you, forget everything. Go ahead in a different mantra. Life is very short. Create infrastructures, create great prepositions so that you are always in a better perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not take much of your time. Simply by concluding, I would like to say, technology, you can focus on artificial intelligence, you can focus on blockchains, you can focus on cloud compounding, you can focus on robotics, you can focus on data analytics, which is our core area. We have so many big data, we go for sampling. Today we go for 100% checking. That is error-free. Every exceptional report can be downloaded, can be brought out and discussed with people to whom it matters. We are answerable to the board or to the audit committee, as the case may be. I urge upon you all to create such infrastructures, such knowledge, systems wherein you are able to perform at the highest ebb. I have nothing more to say, my dear friends. We are a class apart. We are a rare class. And rare class people, one thing I would like to tell you, that don't get driven by negative people. People may say something about the profession. Don't let them not say, I am proud to be a chartered accountant. God is kind that I have become a chartered accountant. It is close to 30 years that I have become a chartered accountant. And even today, I take pride in being a chartered accountant. Leave us out a chartered accountant. If I see a student who has cleared both the groups, I feel respect and reverence for him. We are a class apart and we have to show our mettle. We have to perform. Let the Almighty guide us so that we work in tandem with ensuring that the flag of our great institute, ICAI, flies at unprecedented heights. We have best of the two speakers, Mr. Ujjwal Jindal and Mr. Narasimhan. Spend the time, take notes. If you want anything, please write to me, mail to me. My number is always available. We passionately do everything if you want a specific topic to be done, because this is the second last webinar we are addressing, me and Commissioner Man. The last would be on 30th. After that, we won't come into, because the election code of ethics will come, code of conduct will come. So after that, we'll come back when the code is lifted, which will be somewhere in December. So whatever you want, you can write to the committee. The committee is there to help you, to serve you, and to ensure that all of us march together with greater impetus and resonate to the word that we are a class apart. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you, Ratlam Branch, for being here. Thank you, Mr. Ankit. Thank you, Ujjwal Jindal. Thank you, Madam Vaishali Ahuja, my chairman, the office, Ajit, Hina, Chanda, all who are there. We are all a joint initiative to ensure that the profession reaches unprecedented heights. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for making us realize the importance of skill development in this age, because that was the motivation we required. So, not taking much of your time, I would like to introduce our first speaker of today and would like to give a brief introduction about CA Ujjwal Jindal ji, who is a practicing chartered accountant, along with which he has also obtained certification from CFA Institute of Investment Foundations program. He is well experienced in the field of direct as well as indirect tax laws, along with corporate, secretarial, and allied laws and capital markets, etc. He is also a content writer with Taxman, CA Club India, Tax Guru, newsletters and journals published by ICAI, ICSI, etc. He's also a speaker, consultant, and tax expert with various platforms. Besides all of that, he has also been certified in blockchain essentials from IBM and in digital marketing from Google. He has completed various courses related to finance, valuations, accounting, taxation, budgeting, corporate laws, and various management and strategic accounting related courses, which are much required in today's time from well-known universities and colleges, etc., located all around the globe. Thank you. I would like now CA Ujjwal ji to take it forward and start the session.
Thank you so much, Vaishali, for the wonderful introduction. And I am delighted to be here. Thank you so much, Kemisha ma'am, for the wonderful invite, and to Charanjot Singh Nanda sir for inviting me for this session of CPE of ICAI. Also, I would like to extend my thanks to Dipendra ji and to Ankit ji of the Ratlam branch for conducting or organizing this webinar. So before we start, after that motivational speech and powerful speech of Nanda ji, I feel elated to start this session with an axiom for decoding the CSR. So that goes like this, that corporate social responsibility or CSR begins with a strong competitive company. Only a healthy enterprise can improve and enrich lives of people and their communities. So this was an axiom by Jack Welch. So he, first of all, whenever the concept of CSR was going global all over, so he wrote this particular axiom. Today, in this particular session, we'll be highlighting all the provisions of the Section 135 of the Companies Act. I'll also incorporate the latest amendments that have been made in the year 2021, that is 2021. There are the recent amendments in the CSR rules that has been newly brought and notified on the 22nd of January. So that would be a very knowledge enriching for each and every professional who is listening to this CPE. Also, we'll be decoding the entire provisions along with the set of rules and regulations that the government has brought in, and what are the implications, or how far the CSR would be a challenge, or how far the CSR would be a professional friendly topic. So not taking much time, I'll be heading with my presentation. So corporate social responsibility is basically a management concept whereby companies integrate social and environmental concern in their business operations and interactions with their stakeholders and the public. The concept of CSR, as Nandaji said, is known for its philanthropic nature. CSR is a self-regulating business model that helps a company to be socially accountable. So when we talk about social accountability, so that involves the company itself.
Ujjwalji, I would like to interfere for a minute. And Ujjwalji,
yes,
just
sir,
for a
yes.
second, I would request you to put the PPT so that all people can see. Please share your PPT.
Okay, sir, there is no specific PPT. I just
okay, then please get that. Very good, very good. Then
yes,
please
yes, no specific PPT, just few points.
Impromptu presentation. Good, good. Please do that.
Thank you so much, sir. So the concept of CSR is known for its philanthropic nature, as Nandaji said. So CSR is basically a self-regulating business model that helps a company to be socially accountable. By social accountability, we means that in itself, the company is accountable to itself, its stakeholders, and to the public. By practicing CSR, also called as corporate citizenship. So like a person, an individual has a citizenship, by doing CSR, we make the company a citizen, and that goes like corporate citizenship. The companies may be conscious of the kind of impact they are having on all aspects of society, including economic, social, and environmental, which is why the government has considered all these aspects while formulating the CSR rules in India. I must say CSR is not an expense. First of all, whenever we are talking about CSR, the first thing that comes to our mind or to the minds of the company or being the professional is kharcha. CSR ka kharcha dal dijiye. So it's not an expense at all. Even in the act, they have specified the CSR spends, CSR expenses, but I believe CSR to be a contribution, because it is the contribution to the good, contribution to the social, contribution to the national aspect of the society. So it cannot be it cannot be treated as a general expenditure or the business expenditure, and it is a beyond that particular expense. So we call CSR as a contribution and not an expense. In my entire session, I'll be using the word contribution. However, in the sections, when you will read the particular section of the rules, you'll be aware that this particular contribution word has not been used, but expense or spends word has been used. So kindly substitute it. I cannot go against my like instincts of calling it as a contribution. So I'll be using the word contribution here. So first defining about how CSR came in. So CSR was first introduced in India in the year 2010, that is 2010, when the Ministry of Corporate Affairs had issued a corporate social responsibility voluntary guidelines, which made CSR voluntary for the company. But for the first time, it was introduced as a statutory obligation for the companies by way of Companies Act under Section 135. So before it became the statutory compliance, it was a voluntary compliance that the companies could make by 2010. But in 2014, because the Act of Companies Act 2013 was notified on 1st of April 2014. So then these provision became statutory. Thereafter, the company's corporate social responsibility policy rules were notified on the 27th of February 2014. To lay down the specifications and procedures to be followed by the companies while discharging their CSR obligation. The Companies Amendment Act of 2019 and 2020 resulted in some major changes in the CSR provisions under Section 135 of the Act. The ministry had released the draft Companies Corporate Social Responsibility Policy Amendment Rule in March 2020. Those were the draft rules then, inviting public comments, and on 22nd January 2021, that is this particular calendar year that we are sitting into, the MCA finally issued the Companies Corporate Social Responsibility Policy Amendment Rules, that are called the new rules, giving effect to the changes introduced in CSR by the Companies Amendment Act of 2019 and 20. So basically, these provisions were brought in the year 2019 and 20, but because of the pandemic and because the general procedure takes time to get the implementations done, this get pushed up till 2021. So from starting from the 22nd of January 2021, we have these provisions in line. Most of these provisions have been notified in the year this financial year by April 2021. So it'll be coming up and covering all those particular amendments and updates that have been added up. First of all, I'll be talking about the applicability of this particular section 135, that is of CSR. So this particular section is applicable to all companies. When I say all companies, it includes in entirety every other company that is incorporated in India. So be it a listed company, be it a public company that is not listed, be it a private company, be it a Section 8 company, be it a holding and subsidiary company, or being it a foreign company that is having a branch office or project office in India. Thus, applicability, the provisions of Section 135 flows uniformly to all the companies that have been incorporated in India. So the government has not created any discrimination based upon the companies that like this provision will be applicable to the listed companies alone or to the private companies alone. This particular section, you just have to follow the word company. If you see the word company, Section 135 comes into effect. But there is a small exception to this rule that came in the year 2017. So that was basically for the IFSC, that is International Financial Service Center companies that are public or private. If they commence their business and for the initial period of 5 years, they do not have to comply with the provisions of Section 135. So this is the basic exception that has been added up. Now we are moving to the conditions that are precedent for every company. That is the Section 135(1) itself, subsection 1. So if any company having a net worth of INR 500 crores or more, or kindly get emphasis on the word or, it's not and, it's or. So if any of the three conditions, I'll be highlighting the three conditions, if any of these three conditions gets matched up, then the company gets covered into the CSR policies and provisions. So if a company has a net worth of rupees 500 crores or more, or has a turnover of rupees 1000 crore or more, or has a net profit calculated in accordance with the Section 198 of the Companies Act of rupees 5 crore or more. Now this line is very important, which I'm going to speak, during the immediately preceding financial year, shall constitute a corporate social responsibility committee of the board. So the section says that the particular board or the company's board has to constitute a corporate social responsibility committee if it fulfills any one of the following conditions that I have enlisted. Now, like why, like for what reasons these limits have been kept there? If you focus on this limit, like 500 crores, 1000 crores, 5 crore, these are all big companies. So in effect, if we see, the provisions were made applicable on all companies, but with the companies having net worth turnover this big, only big companies, big listed companies or foreign companies would get covered under the provisions of CSR. So government's intent was again to cover only those companies who can actually make expenses because they earn so much or they have such a bigger turnover or net worth, so that they can make bigger expenses for the good of the society. So that was the intent behind keeping these turnover or net profit or net worth limits so high. Further, the companies not qualifying for CSR can also voluntarily contribute toward the CSR activities. Obviously, if anybody wants to do social good, so he's always welcome. Nobody can stop him. Expenditure that the company incurs on the CSR does not form part of the business expenditure. So this particular, if we say that this particular expenditure, again, I would not use the word expenditure, but the word contribution. So the contribution that this particular company makes is not a business expenditure because it's calculated on the basis of your net profit. It's like 2% of your net profit of the previous average 3 years. We'll be discussing on the computation part as well. So it cannot form part of the business expenditure. Now coming, we use the word the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee. So we'll be discussing about the constitution and functions of this committee. So this comes in the section 135(1) along with its subsection 2, that is 135(2). So every CSR committee of the board should consist of at least 3 or more directors, out of which one has to be an independent director. However, a company in which the principles or the section of 194 subsection 4 does not allow, does not get applied, that is, the company is not required to appoint an independent director. So that particular company shall constitute the CSR committee with 2 or more directors only. So there won't be a need of appointing an independent director into it. So the board report that is prepared under this particular section, the board report that is prepared for filing the annual return and for filing the annual accounts of the company, that annual report has to contain all the details of the composition of the CSR committee. So that is a regulatory requirement. Now, framing the CSR policy, like we are moving to the section 135 subsection 3 now. So what all should be there in the CSR policy, what the committee does, what are its functions. So the CSR committee shall formulate and recommend to the board a CSR policy which shall indicate the activities to be undertaken by the company. So that are the areas that are specified in Schedule 7. That Schedule 7 is there, the Roman 7. The Schedule 7 is of the Companies Act. So these activities are basically of the nature of healthcare, education, environment protection, national heritage, epidemic, sports, or the PM funds, the Prime Minister funds, science and technology, disaster management, slum redevelopment or rehabilitation, natural resources, etc. So basically they cover all the aspects that are linked to national development or social upliftment. All the clauses that are there that constitute national development or social national development and social upliftment forms part of the CSR committee for spending all the amount on the CSR. So the CSR committee shall also recommend the amount of expenditure to be incurred on such activities, and it shall also be responsible to monitor the CSR policy of the company from time to time. So this particular committee shall be a part of the company itself. It shall give its recommendation to the board of directors of the company and shall function according to what has been stated in the law. Now, we move to the next subsection of this particular section, that is subsection 4, that deals with the disclosure of this CSR. So the board of every company shall, after taking into account the recommendations made by the CSR committee, approve the CSR policy for the company. And the disclosure of this particular policy has to be made on the company's website, if there is any. The board shall also ensure that the activities are as per the activities included are as per the CSR policy of the company are actually undertaken by the company. So this is the responsibility of the board of the company. The committee shall pass on the recommendation to the board, and the board, being the execution authority, shall act accordingly. Now, what is the amount to be contributed on CSR? Like we are talking about the CSR spending. So this is the primary section, primary subsection of this section, that is 135.5. So it says that the board of every company shall ensure that the company spends in every financial year at least 2% of the average net profits of the company made during the 3 immediately preceding financial years. So whatever the company has made in net profit in the 3 previous financial year immediately preceding the current financial year, so that has to be aggregated and averaged off, and 2% of that particular amount has to be contributed as a CSR expense by the company. However, there are n number of amendments that have been made by the new CSR rules 2021. One of such amendment in this particular subsection is that where the company has not completed the period of 3 financial year since its incorporation, because when we say that they have to average of the profits of past 3 years, but now talk about a company which is new and has completed just 1 year and has entered the 2nd financial year. Now, from where we get the 3 previous financial years to calculate the average profits from? So for this particular organization, the government has added that where the company has not completed the period of 3 financial years since its incorporation, during such immediately preceding financial year, whatever be the net profit, the 2% shall be calculated of such net profit. So you don't have to see the 3 years, whatever the past year are, be it 1 year or 2 year, you just have to take the average. If it's 1 year, there won't be any average. If there are 2 years, it would be divided by 2 and 2% would be taken in accordance. So that this particular expense shall be as per the CSR policy. This particular amendment was made back by the Companies Amendment Act 2019. However, this amendment was made effective starting from the 22nd January 2021, that is this calendar year. The company is also directed to give all the preference for such contributions like the CSR spendings to the local area and area around in which it operates. Obviously, because whatever be the social landscape or the redevelopment or development that is needed around the area, like even the politicians that have been a part of the Clean India movement, so they were also given their constituencies to be clean. So on the same principle, even the companies that are that has to make a CSR contribution, so they shall be contributing first to its local areas that are surrounding the vicinity of the company first. Like it should give a preference to them for spending the amount earmarked for the corporate social responsibility activities. Now, what happens if the company fails to spend such amount? The board shall in its report specify the reasons for not spending that particular amount. So if for now, like if by any chance the company misses to spend the amount as per whatever is described in the particular act, so the company is liable for actions. So what are the actions? So if the company fails to spend such an amount, the board shall in its report, in the board report, it has to specifically give reasons for not spending that particular amount, because the stakeholder shall be informed, including stakeholder being one of the stakeholder being the government as well. It has to be informed that why such particular expense has not been done, which is statutorily required. And an added amendment has been added to even this part of the section by the Companies Amendment Act 19, which has been notified from the current financial year, that if this particular amount is not spent by the company, so it has to transfer such unspent amount to a fund specified in Schedule 7. So what this special fund is, it's the central government funds, that is the PM Cares Fund or the Clean Ganga Fund we talk about. So all this fund, the company has to transfer such fund within a period of 6 months of the expiry of the financial year. So if the company is now not capable to make that particular expense within the particular time, it has to transfer or divert those funds into these particular central government, into the particular central government funds. So this is basically a major hit on the companies to ensure compliance. Now, in this particular section, there is also a word named as ongoing project, which is also an aspect that has been newly introduced. Like if there is any amount that has been spent or it remains unspent due to any ongoing projects, so that has been excluded from this definition. What are ongoing projects? What is this amount? I am coming to that in the next 2 minutes. Now, what suppose there is a situation that where the company makes excess CSR contribution or spendings. So there be a situation where the company is required to make 2% CSR spendings, but however it made 3%, 4%, 2.5%, 6%. Then what would be the statutory treatment of that particular assertion? So the new amendment says that if the company spends an amount in excess of the requirements provided under this subsection, such company may set off such excess amount against the requirement to spend for 3 succeeding financial year with the permission of the board in such manner as may be prescribed. So they can make that particular, they can utilize such amounts towards their particular CSR spendings in the prospective succeeding 3 financial years. So that particular amount will be treated as an expenditure for the consecutive succeeding next 3 financial years. This particular amendment also comes into effect with 22nd January 2021. So now we are discussing about the ongoing projects. So what happens is sometimes the company starts a project for CSR fulfillment, be it a Clean Ganga initiative or be it any initiative that involves the activities that are covered in CSR. So that particular project, be it of a bigger time span. So there could be a situation where the spending of the company wants to spend the particular amount into that ongoing project, but it has some amount that is unspent or it shall be spent in the coming near future. So what is an ongoing project? The new provisions have described and explained all about the ongoing project. So ongoing project is basically a multi-year project undertaken by a company in fulfillment of its CSR obligation, having timeline not exceeding 3 years, excluding the financial year in which it was commenced, and shall include such project that was initially not approved as a multi-year project, but whose duration has been extended beyond 1 year by the board based on reasonable justification. So this being the ongoing project. Now, what all expenses that you make on this ongoing project, when will such amount be treated as unspent? So there is a new insertion by way of section 135 subsection 6 by the Companies Amendment Act of 2019, that is also effective from the 22nd of January 2021. So it says that any amount remaining unspent under subsection 5. Subsection 5 was CSR spending that we just discussed, pursuant to any ongoing project. So if there is any amount that is unspent, but that relates to an ongoing project, fulfilling the conditions as I specified above, undertaken by a company in pursuance of its CSR policy, shall be transferred by the company within a period of 30 days from the end of the financial year to a special account to be opened by the company in that behalf in that financial year in any scheduled bank, to be called as an unspent corporate social responsibility account. And such amount shall be spent by the company in pursuance of its obligation towards the CSR policy within a period of 3 financial years from the date of such transfer. Failing which, the company shall transfer the such amount to the fund that we referred above in 135.5, that is again the PM funds or the Clean Ganga fund, within the period of 30 days from the date of completion of the third financial year. So basically, there is a relaxation for particular ongoing projects in which the amount remains unspent. So if that particular amount remains unspent, so that particular amount can be routed into a special corporate special unspent corporate social responsibility account and can be utilized within a period of 3 years. If say suppose even after 3 years the company is unable to complete that particular ongoing project or is unable to utilize that particular amount that has been stated, it has to mandatorily transfer that particular fund to the PM Cares Fund, the Clean Ganga Fund, or all the other funds that are central government oriented within a period of 30 days from the end of the third financial year in which it was responsible, it was made compliant to do the necessary compliance. So this all these insertions that are newly inserted, if you focus upon, are majorly penalizing to ensure that the compliances should be done in fact. So basically the government is taking corporate social responsibility on a very higher stance, and it is observing that all the corporates or companies that are not following these particular compliances in a ready or happy fashion, they should be penalized. Just like the if we come across various of the dividends that remain unpaid or various fixed deposit that remains unpaid for a period of 7 years, so we know that they are all routed to an investor education protection fund. So just like a specified fund that is made for educating the investors, we have a specified fund for corporate social responsibility. So government says that if you are liable to make any CSR contribution, but you are not making it as a statutory compliance, so the government will take that particular fund from the company and will utilize the same towards the same cause, that is the corporate social responsibility. So that being the premise, this particular insertion has also been included in section 135. Now coming to the next section, that is section 135 subsection 7. We are just discussing about section 135. Whenever I am saying moving towards the next section, here it means the next subsection. So this particular subsection talks all about penalty. Earlier, what was there in this particular section, we had lesser penalties, lesser fines. So from fines, they have now moved to penalty. It has been a rigorous compliance now. So if a company in a default, like it is liable to make the CSR contribution, but it is not making the desired contribution, in complying with the provisions of subsection 5 and subsection 6 that I just mentioned, that is the CSR spending, and then for the ongoing project spending, the company shall be liable to a penalty of twice the amount required to be transferred by the company to the fund. Oh my God, what a bigger penalty it is. So say suppose the 2% works out as an amount to be 10 lakh. So the penalty goes up to 20 lakh, twice of what is to be contributed. Or if the amount be 50 lakh, it goes up to 1 CR. I mean, double the amount of penalty. I was really shocked to read such a bigger penalty. But again, this is the government's way to ensure the compliance of this particular section. And that particular the penalty that has to also be routed to the fund. That is again the PM Cares Fund, the Clean Ganga Fund that have been mentioned in Schedule 7. or the unspent corporate social responsibility account, as the case may be, or 1 crore rupees, whichever is less. Okay, so there is a small relief that if your expenditure is maximum 50 lakh, so the double of which goes up to 1 CR. So if that expenditure is more than that, say a company is about to expend rupees 60 lakh, so that the double of it becomes the penalty of 1 crore 20 lakh. But no, the maximum amount that has to be contributed is 1 CR. Whichever is less has to be followed. So the company will have to transfer this particular amounts if not spent either to the fund or to the unspent corporate social responsibility account for ongoing projects. And the third is the amount itself, that is 1 crore. So whichever works out to be less, that has to be the penalty. And every officer of the company who is in default shall also be liable to a penalty of 1/10 of the amount required to be transferred by the company to such fund. And this 1/10 would also be very excessive. If say there is the CSR contribution is, say, suppose 50 lakh. So 1/10 of 50 lakhs worked out to be 5 lakh. Even that is a major hit. And that is on every officer of the company who's in default. So be it every who is looking after the affairs of the company, the board, and everyone, every single person has to bear this amount of penalty individually. So this is also a very bigger hit the government is doing just to ensure compliance. So 1/10 of the amount is required to be transferred again to the fund that is specified, or to the unspent corporate social responsibility account for the ongoing projects, as the case may be, or rupees 2 lakh, whichever is less. So there is also a slighter relief on this, that the maximum amount of penalty that could be levied is rupees 2 lakhs. So 20 lakh rupees expenditure, 1/10 becomes 2 lakh. So that becomes the maximum amount, even if the amounts are higher. So say suppose it's 50 lakh, even then you have to just the maximum penalty that would go is 2 lakh for the particular director. So this particular section is being substituted by the earlier section, that was subsection 7, and is given effect by the Companies Amendment Act to 2020 by the notification of 28th September 2020, and the amendment being made effective from 22nd January 2021. So all the amendments that I'm talking about, we are discussing like one after the another. All these particular amendments have been given effect starting from the 22nd of January 2021. So let me tell you just for your like knowledge enrichment, that what were the previous provisions of this particular section. So it said the company shall be punishable with a fine which shall not be less than rupees 50,000 rupees. So that was that time 50,000 rupees, but which may extend to 25 lakh. So maximum penalty that time, or maximum fine that time, was 25 lakhs, but and minimum was 50,000. But now it has been double of what has to be contributed towards rupees 1 crore. So it has been drastically made higher. And secondly, for the people like who were the officers of the company, even for them there were punishments. I mean, there were fines that could also extend up to rupees 5 lakh rupees, and starting from rupees 50,000. And also there was a provision which made the officer of the company punishable with a term of imprisonment. So this particular offense has been decriminalized. This particular thing has been decriminalized. So if I talk about the one good thing that has happened, the penalties or the amounts have been increased drastically, but the penal, the imprisonment part, that is the criminal part, that has been vindicated. So that is all about the amendment in this particular section. Now coming to the subsection 8. So the subsection 8 says that the central government may give such general or special directions to a company or a class of companies as it considers necessary to ensure compliance of provisions of this particular section. So this is basically that the central government is also responsible for making such compliances or to issue such direction or notices or circulars that may be necessary for giving effect to the CSR provisions and CSR policies. So this is a general clause that it's a general subsection that was also existing in the previous existing provisions, and it is still there in the newly inserted or newly notified provisions. Now moving to the last subsection of this particular section, that is subsection 9. So it also talks about some of the major part or major amendment that has been made. So it says that where the amount to be spent by a company under subsection 5. So subsection 5 was the CSR spending. So that amount does not exceed 50 lakh rupees. The requirement under subsection 1 for constitution of CSR committee shall not be applicable, and the function of such committee provided under this section shall in such case be discharged by the board of directors of such company. Again, there is a specified relief that if your CSR contribution does not exceed the amount that has to be contributed or spent by way of CSR does not exceed an amount of 50 lakhs in a financial year. So that particular company is not required now to constitute the CSR committee, and the board of directors of that particular company will do the functions and carry out the functions or draft the CSR policy by their own. So there is no specific requirement of constituting a separate CSR committee. With this, we complete all the sections, the subsections that are linked to the section 135 dealing with the corporate social responsibility. I have also incorporated, if you could have said, if you could see the all the new rules that have been implemented by 22nd, that have been made effective on 22nd January 2021. But I am also now highlighting other provisions or other rules, because this is a section and all the guidance come from the rules as may be prescribed. So wherever things are prescribed, it goes into rules. So there are certain points, there are certain things that are not mentioned in this particular section, but it has been there in the rules. So what other things that have been notified in the rules, I'm just coming to that. Before coming to that, I'll also like to highlight one particular one important feature of the CSR, that what is the non-applicability provision of the CSR. Like say, suppose if a company, first of all, in the first financial year, say it made a profit or net worth or the turnover as per this particular section, but in the consecutive years, like in the second year or third year, it failed to achieve this particular net worth, profit or turnover. It could be a scenario. Then in that case, what would be the non-applicability provisions as to when the CSR provisions will not remain applicable to a company. So every company which ceases to be a company covered under this section of the Act for 3 consecutive financial years shall not be required to constitute a CSR committee or to comply with the provisions contained in subsection 2 to subsection 6. That is all about making up committee, spending of the expenditure, making the CSR spends, or etc., whatever we have discussed, till the time it meets the criteria specified in section 135 once again. So आपको 3 years के लिए, the company को 3 सालों के लिए इस particular assertion को they have to basically not get covered into this particular subsection if they are not having a turnover, say suppose of 1,000 crore for 3 consecutive years, net worth of 500 crore for 3 consecutive years, and again net profit of 5 crore rupees for 3 consecutive financial year, then you go out of this particular provision. Now coming towards the new assertions that have been made in the rules, that is the new rules. So that is with regard to non-permissible activities under CSR. So there are n number of activities that government has classified that the expenditure on such activities shall not be constituted as a CSR expense. So what are these activities? So these specifically excludes, like now the CSR activities shall specifically exclude activities in pursuance of normal course of business. However, such normal course of business, if a company is engaged in the business of R&D of vaccines or drugs or medical devices, may undertake COVID-19 related R&D and CSR for 3 financial years starting from the financial year 2020 to 2021, subject to certain conditions as prescribed in new rules. However, such particular conditions have not been notified yet, or they have not been made public for this particular set of companies. But those companies that are making R&D on vaccines, because due to the COVID pandemic, the medical and healthcare sector has been majorly impacted, and whatever expenses are being made on these vaccines or medical devices or drugs, so these particular items have been considered as of like it's public welfare and public health and safety. So all those companies that are engaged in these particular businesses, they shall be doing they shall be expending whatever in the R&D, the research and development or the technological part, that particular amount shall be treated as a CSR expense. Second exclusion being the contribution to the political party as provided under section 182 of the Act. So if you are making a contribution to a political party, that particular amount shall not be considered as a CSR expense or contribution. Sponsorship for deriving marketing benefits for own products and services. This being of your own personal benefit. So the social components is getting ignored. In that circumstance, the CSR activity shall specifically exclude this particular activity. Fulfillment of any other statutory obligation under any other law in force in India. So there are certain environmental compliances or environmental acts that the company that are leviable, that are being made compliant to a company, that the company has to follow. So if you do expenses to bring on that particular statutory policy, so that that particular section does not get attracted on the company, so you cannot claim that particular cost to be your CSR, because that has to be done statutorily. Again, the activities that are undertaken outside India except training of national or international level Indian sportsmen. So if any expenditure is made for training of national or international sportsmen even outside India, even that particular amount is your CSR spend, because again, you are making an expenditure towards your national sportsmanship. But if it's taken outside India, all expenses other than this one, so this will be disallowed. Now the activities benefiting employees of the company defined in clause K of section 2 of the Code of Wages Act. So that particular item will also be disregarded for the CSR expense. So all these activities shall not be considered for the purpose of CSR, and only if we see on a broader scale that all the activities that involve national development and social upliftment, only those particular activities the government is ready to include in the ambit of CSR. Now we talk about the administrative overheads. So while the term administrative overhead had not been listed exhaustively, the amendment defined it as an expense incurred for general management and administration of CSR functions in a company. With the notification, it now excludes expenses directly incurred for designing, implementing, monitoring, and evaluation of a particular CSR project or program. This means that this expenses can now be considered as part of the CSR program itself, thereby allowing greater allocation of resources for these activities. However, the cap on administrative cost of 5% as stated in this rule remains the same. So this was also existing before this amendment came in. However, the only amendment being that it now excludes this particular expenses that are for monitoring, implementation, or evaluation. Next, we move towards the acquisition or creation of a capital asset, provided that it is not owned by the company. So the asset created using the CSR fund must be owned either by the organization supported or the people served by the project. For instance, collectives such as social self-help groups or by public authority. So basically, the company cannot own those particular projects, the capital assets or projects that the company is spending into for CSR. So that particular asset has to be owned by a self-help group or for the purpose of the person for whom it is created. So it being a Section 8 company or a registered public trust or a registered society, or is having a charitable object, and also possessing a CSR registration number. So this is also a new like update or amendment that has been added. I'll be just narrating it in the next 2 minutes. We'll be discussing all about the CSR registration number. Second being, it can be like collectives of the beneficiaries, or it be a public authority as defined under Section 2H of the RTI Act, or the ownership of existing capital asset, if any held in the company's name, to be transferred to the above mentioned company trust beneficiary within 180 days from the commencement of new rules. And the said period can be extended only up to 90 days beyond 180 days with the permission of the board. So basically, all these particular capital assets that the companies invest in for its CSR objective, so that particular capital asset cannot be owned by the company in itself. It has to be owned by for the person or for whose benefit it is created, or for whose benefit it is brought to the like for the benefit of that particular beneficiary, trust, public authority. So the company would not become the owner. So now like discussing about the CSR registration number, that is basically filing of e-form CSR1. So we know that a new form has been introduced by this new amendment that has been made, that is CSR1. So the new rules brought in the new company mandatory registration of trust Section 8 companies with the central government by way of filing e-form CSR1 with the registrar of companies. Further, the MCA has introduced the MCA e-form CSR1 with effect from 1st April 2021 on the MCA portal. on submission of this particular e-form CSR1 on the portal, a unique CSR registration number shall be generated by the system automatically, and the said number of implementing partner is required to be disclosed in Annexure 2. So this becomes an identity number for your CSR. So CSR registration is now made mandatory even at the MCA front. All organizations who are who have to do the activities that concern the nature of the CSR, or that have to be incorporated for all the spendings of the CSR, that have to obtain mandatorily a CSR registration number by filing e-form CSR1. So this is also a requirement that has been added by the newly amended provisions, or the newly brought in the provisions. Now we are moving to the last two highlights of these new provisions, that is increased responsibility of board and format of reporting CSR contribution in board's report. So as I'm saying, the government is time and again bringing new provisions to make the compliance even better, in a more better manner, that the company should follow all the provisions of this particular act. So they are strengthening all the provisions that came in. So by this, they have made the CFO as person responsible for financial management to certify CSR fund utilized for the purpose and manner approved by the board. So basically, CFO or person responsible for financial management of the company shall now have to certify the amount of CSR that has been utilized. So there is an additional compliance requirement, and the professional is being made liable to first certify that this particular CSR fund has been utilized for the company, and also in the same manner as it has been approved by the board of directors of the company. So by this, it's just like an audit. If we say that this particular item gets certified or audited by the particular professional, that the compliance of this particular section along with its rule is justified. Second, the board has to monitor implementation of ongoing projects with respect to approved timelines and year-wise allocations. Now the implementation of ongoing projects that we just discussed, that it cannot exceed the period of 3 years, or if by chance the extension is needed, that the maximum extension could be 1 year. So that has to be approved within that the projects have to be completed in the approved timelines, and the amount that is being allocated every year to this ongoing project has to be an amount that has been decided by the board. So it will be starting from the year 1, it has to be year-wise allocated. Now again, the detailed information with respect to excess CSR spend carried forward and set off. We discussed about if the company makes higher amount of spends as a CSR contribution, then in that case it can set off this particular contributions in the next succeeding 3 financial year. Now for that particular assertion, the detailed information with respect to such excess CSR spend carried forward and set off, surplus arising out of CSR projects, ongoing project, capital asset, unspent CSR amount shall be reported in Annexure 2 as prescribed under the new rules. So basically, the disclosure requirements have been strengthened, and you have to now disclose for all the CSR funds that you have utilized. There would be a certification requirement. The ongoing project has to be completed on time. The CSR amount that is unspent or is unutilized, the detailed disclosure with regard to the same has to be provided. So this has all been brought by the new amendment that have been made effective with effect from 22nd of January. Moving to the last limb of our today's discussion is impact assessment. This particular assertion has also been brought by the new rules, and it says that impact assessment to be undertaken for CSR project with outlay of 1 crore or more by the companies having average CSR obligation of rupees 10 crore or more in immediately 3 preceding financial year through an independent agency. So basically, where the CSR project is involved, the company is having its own CSR project on which the expenses are to be made. So that particular the project has an outlay of rupees 1 crore or more by the company, and the CSR obligation of the company is 10 crore or more in the immediately 3 preceding financial years. So this is not average. It's basically a total of all those 3 financial years. So if it works out to be 10 crore or more, then that particular project has to be certified or has to be undertaken through an independent agency. So the company cannot take it in itself. So the independent agencies have not been defined under these new rules for now. There has to be an independent agencies, but the provisions for the same will be notified in the coming time. The cost of impact assessment expenditure shall not exceed 5% of the mandated CSR or rupees 50 lakh, whichever is less. So the cost of this impact assessments that the company will do that particular impact assessment shall not exceed an amount of 5%. Impact assessment report shall be placed before the board for its final observation and final acceptability. So particularly basically with regard to a project, CSR project that involves CSR expenditure of rupees 1 crore, or the CSR obligation of the company in their previous 3 financial year has been 10 crore. So they have to get their project, it's the impact of such project assessed by an independent agency. So that independent agency would give its report about what the project is, how the functionality is, how far the particular project will be able to serve or to cater to the needs of the social responsibility. So this particular, like what we say is credit rating. So basically the government has brought a credit rating authority or agency for the CSR also. So there is a proper mechanism of evaluating the CSR projects. So basically in entirety, if we see that all the government's initiatives or the amendments that have been brought in are focused on increasing the compliance of this particular section along with the new rules that have been notified. Secondly, we also have seen that certain things have been decriminalized, certain things have been relaxed for such particular turnovers. Because as a constant trend, we see that for the small businesses whose turnover is lesser than 5 crore or lesser than 10 crore, the government is time and again trying to ease off all the compliance requirement to ensure better compliance. Because the companies that are bigger in size, they are able to get their compliances done in a better way. But all the companies that are small or that have a limited fund base, the compliances on them is like to ensure compliances from them or get the work done from them is a bigger task, and the government hardly takes or hardly gets any money out of it. So basically compliance, like the bigger compliance, like for the CSR, if we say, it is kept for bigger organization or bigger companies having net worth of 500 crore, turnover of 1000 crore. So it is not on small companies. Also on companies that have a CSR spending of just rupees 50 lakh during the entire financial year, even for them the CSR committee requirements have been relaxed. The provision of the new rules appear to be more detailed and structured, and it has been introduced as it has introduced new requirements like detailed reporting of CSR contribution in the board report, impact assessment of CSR contribution, and even covered the contribution towards vaccines and R&D, focusing on health issues faced by the Indian citizens during COVID-19. Though the new CSR rules are very streamlined, comprehensive, and have addressed many unresolved issues, but there are certain provisions which are still vague and needed some clarity, like for the independent agencies, or there be such small assertions that are still like the clear rules or clear framework or the clear guidelines for them has not been prescribed till date, and there is need for clarity. However, the new CSR rules have been welcomed in India by the corporates, because if we see that for the corporate there is a bit of relaxation that has been given in the rules, and also there is decriminalization that has been done. So basically if we talk about that, whether this particular CSR updation or the CSR rules that have come in, they have been welcomed by the corporates, and also in the coming financial years we will see the basic impact of this particular amendment, that how it unfolds. There are number of professionals that are entering the CSR avenue, because earlier the CSR was only restricted or only about having a CSR spending. But as I said, the word spending has now gone more away from being contribution than just spending, because it is all towards the public good. So CSR in a nutshell is a national development vehicle and a social development, a social upliftment cycle for the Indian nation. So with this, I conclude this session for the day. And I would ask Vishali to come up, and if there are any questions, I am there to answer it. Thank you so much for listening to this particular session. It is really a great delight for me to be here at the CPE committee and taking this particular session. Thank you so much.
Vishali, please unmute it.
Can you hear me now? Am I audible?
Yes, Vishali.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ujjwal Jindaji. That the session was really insightful. Although we have received a set of queries, so shall I start with the queries?
Yes, Vishali, you can start.
Yeah. So let's say if a private limited manufacturing company pays an XYZ amount to a trust, which is also registered as a under Section 12A,
Okay.
and it is also approved under Section 80G.
Okay.
Okay, and the purpose for which the amount was given was an immovable property. So, will it be also eligible as a for a CSR activity binding on that private limited company?
So, like before answering this, the provisions have been made very clear from 1st of April 2021 that every trust, society, or charitable institution that has to do the CSR or has to get registered under the CSR by way of a CSR registration number. So this trust, if it particular trust has a CSR registration number, then this particular trust is registered under the CSR for taking the donations and having the CSR amount as its contribution. Now talking about the company, if the company would be eligible if it gives such amount to the trust. So for yes, because for sure this company would be eligible, because say suppose if this particular trust invests in building up a medical site, say suppose a medical hospital, and for that particular reason it has to acquire the land first. So this particular expenditure that the company makes to the trust, and the trust makes an expenditure for buying the immovable property and then constructing the hospital. So the major activity that is being conducted is the construction of the hospital, and that gets very well covered under the CSR spending. So if that particular trust is registered for the CSR activities and the company has given the fund to that particular trust, then for sure this activity would get covered under CSR. However, if that trust does not have a CSR number or CSR registration number, then this particular amount shall be disallowed. It is very essential to note that by this provision of CSR registration number, the government has created a very good sign that all the activities of such people who are creating a CSR trust or CSR or doing CSR activities, when they are applying for the CSR registration, they are automatically getting governed by the CSR provisions, and there is a regulation on them. So any amount that is being given to them and that they are spending is being under a regulated channel, and all the donations or all the amount that are they getting as a CSR expense for a particular company, that gets automatically allowed. So this has to be in particular C.
Okay, thank you. Understood. So the next query which has been raised is basically, so if a company is basically taken over by a particular company, with, and the shareholders are different, okay, and it is being done in the current financial year. So what would be the CSR applicability on that subsidiary company?
So say suppose that there are a set of mergers, that there are a set of amalgamations, and the shareholders or the ownership or the beneficial ownership of the company is getting switched. However, the company remains going. So there is a very popular axiom in Companies Act. It says people may go, people may come, but the companies go on forever. So it has an infinite existence. So whether there is a change of ownership, whether there is a switch in the beneficial ownership of a company, if a company is fulfilling the conditions or the criteria that has been advised by the Section 135, and that particular company is getting governed by the same provisions, even if there is a switch or merger, the CSR expenses, the CSR spending or contribution has to be in line with the Companies Act to avoid non-compliance.
Okay. So now the next question is basically, can the company utilize the CSR funds for granting donation to an education institution which is managed by the managing director of that said company?
Okay. So this particular question has came up many times, like whether this transaction being even at arm's length transaction, what we call in transfer pricing, because it is a related party. Seeing the edge of the company being that the company's managing director is owning that particular education society. So now again, my answer would be the same as I referred to in my first query, that if that particular public institution or public university or educational institution is registered for the CSR activities, and that particular company is making its spending to this particular CSR registered entity. So this becomes two different entities in totality. And now whatever the CSR spendings the company has to make, like the 2% of the average net profit, and it is making it to this particular company that is owned by its one of the managing directors of the company. Even then, there is no related party relation that exists, because the transaction is getting covered under the direct channel and a clean channel. There is no like diversion of funds, or there is any appropriation that is being made by the company. So even the clean route, because there may be situations or circumstances where the company's other persons, employees, directors would be partners or would be the owners in the social responsibility projects as well. So in that case, even if the company is making the donations or is extending help as per the as following all the rules and relevant regulations of the Companies Act and the other regulations that have been brought in, the expense has to get allowed. There is no reason that the expense shall be disallowed.
Okay, so but do we need to classify it as the related party transaction as the
Yes,
MD
it would be
himself is managing
correct.
the trustee
It would
account?
be very it would be a good compliance or a good governance compliance by the company if it narrates this particular assertion in the board report that this particular amount is being given for the CSR expenditure, and that particular entity being interested party for the company. But for this particular CSR activity, it has been duly classified or duly recognized by the government for this particular objective. So it would be a good compliance. However, I believe it not to be a mandatory compliance, because the entity is in entirety different, and also it must be having a CSR registration number. So in any case, the company would not be it would not be facing any big troubles in the future.
Okay, so now just to clarify it, sir, that whether the contribution which is made under CSR, will it be eligible under section 80G of the income tax or not?
See, now what works as I just said that this particular CSR expense, that is not a business expenditure. Okay. So now classifying it as like a donation or a deduction for the purpose of 80G. 80G is a separate set, and whatever things have been have been classified. So there all the deductions that have been classified, and you being making the CSR expenditures there, and CSR spends that are on the like the PM Cares fund or the other fund that the company has to make. So for that particular assertion, the company can definitely claim the expense as the deduction, because that is being already designed, and it is not a double expenditure. Because if a company is obligated to make a 2% CSR spend, and that is a compliance requirement of Companies Act, and that particular compliance, if it's getting even the same treatment under the Income Tax Act, that is the Income Tax Act is also allowing the same as an expenditure. So why not? It would be obviously claiming that particular expenditure, particular deduction under section 80G. However, we have to ensure that there may be certain CSR activities that are classified as CSR activities under the Companies Act, but not as per the Income Tax Act. So we have to check in the compliance that that particular assertion shall be allowed in the Income Tax Act for gaining that particular CSR benefit.
Okay. Okay, so this is the last query. So basically, in case we are carrying forward the CSR of previous year expense, basically we just made a provision and the expense was not made. Okay.
Correct.
So the same is required to be spent before 31st March 2021, was required to be spent before 31st March 2021, or transferred to the fund before 30th September 2021. Right.
So now,
now
there is a case, because this particular assertion was not clear before this amendment came in. So what people were doing is that there was a specific reporting requirement that existed even before, that the amount that remains unspent has to be reported by the company in its board report for the specific CSR spending that it has not met. And even in the balance sheet, this amount was shown as a liability by the company, that this particular amount has to be expended in the near future. So what the companies earlier were doing it, they were keeping this account in their balance sheet, showing the amount as a balance, and in the next or prospective years, it was making the particular expense and was claiming the particular deduction and getting compliant with the Companies Act. However, there were no rules that this particular item could be treated as or penalized or compensated for. So just to ensure the compliance with regard to these items, they have defined the rules in such a way that now you have to make the adjustments in the fund that has been stated in the schedule 7, or you have to transfer the amount in the unspent corporate social responsibility account, or you have to even the company is being made penalized if they are not spending that particular amount in the particular time that has been given to them. So before the same time, what we were doing is we were just carrying it and we were making the particular expense. And from the ROC also, for the for the period of 2 or 3 years, there were no notices in practical sense. I'm saying that were coming to the companies for making those particular expenditure. And as soon as we the notice could have came from the ROC, the company was already making that particular expense in the same financial year to avoid the non-compliance. That was existing till now. But like to make in line the provisions in line with the compliance and everything, this new assertions have added all those missing factors or all those missing principles that were not there in the previous act, just making the law more transparent and more clear for all the investors.
Okay, thank you so much, C. Ujjwal Jindalji. That was very insightful. So now I would request CA Amit Kumar Vachani ji, Secretary of Ratlam Branch of CIRC of ICAI, for presenting vote of thanks on behalf of the whole committee. CA Amit ji, is he not there?
Madam, I will tell.
Okay.
So friends, this is the first session of today's VCM. No doubt is very good and fruitful session. And detailed information has been shared by Ujjwalji on Section 135 of the Companies Act. All the provision of Section 135 of the Companies Act in very detailed manner, and also related rules on the CSR. On the behalf of the CPE Committee of ICAI, Ratlam Branch of ICAI, and all the CA members who participated in this session, I extend many thanks to C. Ujjwalji for that. Surely all the members will benefit from this and will be able to serve the client in better and more efficient manner. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Ujjwalji. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for inviting me for this wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you,
Over
sir.
to Vaishali.
Yes, sir. So now for the second half of the session, I would like to introduce CA Narasimha Ilengovan-ji, who is a BCom, FCA, CS, DISA, DIP IFRS UK, CISA USA, LLB, CDPSA USA. He is a futurist, a GRC professional, and a keynote speaker. His areas of practice include data analytics, risk-based audit, privacy impact assessments, internal audits, information system assurance, internal financial controls, and SOX compliance and SOC audits. In the past few years, we have also been advising in the emerging areas of technologies such as AI, blockchain, cloud computing, and cybersecurity and big data. He is also a faculty of DISA, CISA, and courses on blockchain technology. He has authored more than 4 books for ICAI, KSCCAA, etc. on technology. He is a regular speaker on technology at various national and international conferences of ICAI, ISACA, CII, FICCI, etc. He has also been identified as one of the top 10 influential consulting leaders 2020 on annual recognition for torchbearers in the consulting sphere by CEO Insights magazine. Over to CA Narasimha Ilengovan.
Hello, Vishali. This is from the team. The faculty is joining within next 2 minutes.
Okay.
So, be patient with us. There is a technical error with his system.
Okay, no issues.
Dear all members, be patient with us. The faculty is joining in next few minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Unfortunately, I'm not able to hear you folks. I don't know why.
1 second, sir. So now you are able to share. Please share your PPT, sir.
You're able to hear me, right?
Yes, you can share your PPT, sir.
And Narasimhan, you may start now.
Are you able to hear me now? Hello?
Yes,
Sir, you are audible.
yes, audible, sir.
I think you're able to hear me. Unfortunately, I'm having some issue with my phone, microphone. I just got done with a meeting half an hour back and it was working fine. I don't know what went wrong with that.
Sir, everything is audible at our end if you could hear us. So, sir, you may start now, in fact.
Yeah, maybe can we get started? We can type the messages in the chat window in case you have any
Yes,
questions.
yes, yes.
Okay, so thanks Ajit Ji for confirming on that.
Yeah.
Very happy to meet all of you. Very good evening, and thank you for joining in. So today the topic is very specific and very relevant. With the growth of bots and the growth of systems, correct? There is obviously a need for us to relook into how AI is playing into or entering our space. And let me remind you, artificial intelligence, the way it is getting connected into our profession is something is very, very significant. It is making inroads more and more day by day. Okay, more and more. Let me tell you that. The reason why I make a mention that it is only increasing is today systems are becoming more and more intelligent. When more intelligence is giving into the system, that is where the element of AI comes into play. Correct? So with that as a context, what we're going to do is we're quickly going to run through this. A quick brief about myself. My name is Narasimhan Ilangovan. I'm a practicing chartered accountant, and my specialization is in the domain of technology. I have been with the institute, sharing my thoughts and sharing my ideas in various fronts. And of course, this also resulted in me, contributing for a few guidance notes with the institute as well. This general disclaimer that the views are personal, nothing to be taken as a representation of a firm. Okay. Now that we have got the main things done, let me quickly jump into the core agenda. So what I want to take you through is, give a perspective of what is changing in and around the globe, what exactly is happening, and then probably emphasize on what exactly is AI, correct, and how is it making an impact, or how is it creating some sort of a noise in this place. And then we'll go into something very specific, how AI is being used in our profession, which is the core gist or the core agenda which I wanted to cover, right? How AI is coming into our profession, what are the various places, and how is it going to impact accounting or audit for that matter. And last, how can we get started using AI in our office? Yes, you heard it right, AI in our office. Now I'll help you out with a few very basic tools and solutions which is actually doing wonders in this space. The first thing we need to understand is that the way things are changing in the last few years. And there's a beautiful report which has come up from the World Economic Forum. Okay, the World Economic Forum every year comes up with very, very interesting analysis. And one such analysis they came up with is the Future of Job Reports 2020. A very good document for all of you to go through it. Now, what this Future of Job Report says is there are multiple jobs which is losing its significance, and there are a good number of jobs which are rising in its role. The role of that is only increasing. Now, given this context or given this scenario, how do we as professionals try to manage both these sides? That's typically what is covered in this entire setup. Okay, so that is what clearly articulates here. And there's a beautiful, if you look into it very carefully, I'm just going to use a pen or a highlighter out here. You will notice that there are multiple jobs which are declining in value. Typically your data entry clerks, okay, your accounting and bookkeeping records, accountant and auditors, correct? So the top 4 jobs which will perhaps get replaced or modified very soon is something to do with, accounting. One way we can always look into it, hey, is this gentleman trying to scare us? Is this gentleman trying to do something, which can have an impact? Or is it that there could be a professional opportunity? Or is it that there could be something in the learning perspective, correct? So these are all definitely questions which one has to look into it, right? And the way I look into it is, we will lose our significance. I repeat, we will lose our significance if we start doing the work in the same fashion, and we may perhaps lose our relevance. To give a simple example, if you look into the way in which a few years back, the invention of the motor car, it was seen as one major backstep. It was seen as a major backstep, okay? Because many of them thought that, all the, especially these people who were used to having the horse carriage or the tonga, they actually thought they're going to lose their job. But what did they do? They upskilled themselves on how to drive a car, and from a motor carriage, it moved on to a car, correct? And that's why today's car's power is still measured through a horsepower, HP, basically trying to refer back to that of what horses were capable of doing, correct? And as though this is not sufficient, there is also an interesting analysis on the top skills which are necessary for 2025. And out of that, you will notice a bunch of these: analytical thinking and innovation, active learning, complex problem solving. Now, if you notice here clearly, a good number of first few points is domain expertise. I repeat, is domain expertise. When I use the word domain expertise, this is nothing but the subject knowledge expertise. And this is very, very, very critical, because unless this is very clear and in terms of how things are going to be, you will not be able to survive this tide. Correct? So that is where it is very important that skill sets what we have for 2025 is something which we have to start developing from today. Now there are two perspectives on this. A is going completely into the depth of the technology. B, trying to be a functional expertise, having a functional knowledge expertise, and trying to navigate that functional knowledge through technology. I think that's a very important thing. You need not be concerned about how AI system works, but you need to know how the AI system gives you interpretations, and that is critical. I'll take you through all of these, probably in the slides to come, and that is what we should all be concerned about. And let us see how this transition has taken place in the few years. What started off in 1780s, perhaps as Industry 1.0, with the invention of steam power, weaving loom, etc., became a mass production assembly line electrical engineering in the year probably, about 100 years or later. Correct? And Henry Ford was, one of the persons who brought in the concept of assembly line and mass production. But what changed after that is automation, computers, electronics, IC chips, correct? So these were the things it actually changed or revolutionized, correct? And that is where I saw, or systems or people saw, a significant progress coming into play. And from there on, my dear friends, is where Industry 4.0 came into picture. The era we are all living now, correct? And let me remind you, this is one such revolution which is brought in, and it is expected to only increase in the days to come. It's going to only increase in the days to come. And when I say these technologies, what are we talking about it? We're talking about technologies which is built over here. Autonomous robots, simulation, systems integration, IoT, Internet of Things, correct? Devices speaking with each other. Cybersecurity, of course, something which has to protect all of us, correct? Big data, analyzing large volumes of data. Augmented reality, how is it that you are able to visualize certain things right in front of your eyes, correct? Then comes your additive manufacturing, which is incremental manufacturing or a 3D based printing, etc., where objects are literally printed, correct, in cloud computing. And this is where we are actually seeing Industry 4.0 go. But equally important is for us to understand how the factory of the future looks like. It is quite similar to this, where you have a fairly large range of systems interconnected with each other. And real-time intelligence is built into each of these layers, which is able to understand and forecast, and more importantly, predict things. Correct? On the extreme right, we are all seeing what is the requirements of the client. It could be mass customization, it could be IoT, it could be understanding the demand, and it goes backwards, trying to see what is necessary for suppliers. How do I ensure that the entire supply chain is sort of integrated? And this is a classical example, my dear friends, to say what exactly is transformation in the last few years. Just to give you a overall high-level perspective. What started off as horse cart, train, automobile, aeroplane became ride sharing, and today we're talking about autonomous car. It's only a question of when it can come into our country. And what is the future? We do not know. Maybe a flying helicopter or a flying drone, heli taxi, which can just pick up one person and drop another person. And look on the payment side. There is barter, correct, which started off, then moved into physical currency backed by gold, fiat money, credit cards, wallet, digital currency. And the future is what? We don't know. We're talking about non-fungible tokens today, NFTs, correct? And the whole new markets surrounding that. So things are changing at a rapid pace. And COVID has only accelerated this entire thing. So now hitting the bullseye. What exactly is AI? Why is it making noise? Why should we be aware of it? Right? And today, this one image actually summarizes everything. It is no doubt a jovial picture, but I think it gives you the entire perspective. Humans are hooked. machines are learning. And that's right. Because the machines of today are learning, my dear friends. It's actually doing multiple things, starting from very basic ways in which it is understanding, profiling, all of those systems what able to do. I'll give you a couple of simple examples for us to understand. You know that you have an appointment at a particular time. Google Maps is able to alert you saying that, hey, this is where you normally go, there is a traffic jam. Those of you using Office 365, okay, there is something called as a virtual assistant from Microsoft, okay. And what it does to you, my dear friends, is every day morning, maybe whatever your time zone is, it gives you a setup or a reminder saying this is what is the information or the client meetings you have based on yesterday's discussion. And it's basically Microsoft AI, which is called Cortana. Now, what does it do? It just gives you a day's briefing. In simple language, it says, hey, based on your previous meetings or previous this thing, there was a mail which was received from so and so person. You said that you will reply today, and that today is today. Based upon, let's say, the meetings you have, this is the schedule of meetings. Why don't you plan your day? Correct. And these are the times which are available. Do you want to call it as focus hours so that I'll mark you as do not disturb? These are things which AI is doing it. Microsoft Cortana, in case you want to, you can just go ahead and explore it. And this is available for free as long as you're using the Microsoft suite of products. Correct. And that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Machines are learning day in and day out. And this is only going to continue to happen in the future. So what exactly is AI? If I have to put a simple definition or a meaning to it, because definition is a very, very fancy terminology. Each person defines it in a different context. Correct? So what exactly is AI? Advanced computer systems that can simulate, very important wording is the word simulate. That means it can replicate what human capabilities are. The task of asking the computers and machines to do whatever human requires and a simple intelligence to do. And for all you know, your Google Maps is a classical example of intelligence embedded into any solution. For example, let's say I'm talking about how I need to go from location A to location B. You switch on your Google Map and you're going in that. And what Google does is, based on the coordinates, based on the number of people who are traveling in that route, for whom they may be going to location X to Y, but they're all stuck in that particular location for various reasons. It identifies that this person or these people are stuck over here for a fairly long time. And therefore, that results in converting the Google map from what is called as the normal color, what is blue, it gets converted to light brown or orange. And from there, it gets converted to red. And if it's a heavy traffic, it gets converted to maroon or dark red. So it's very evident that that's how things actually move. Correct? And this is a street artist. Okay, I think his name was Simon. I'm not going to play this video for want of time, etc. I would want all of you to Google this. He was a street artist. You know what? He did something very funny. He had a red wagon, which you can see, just a small cart. He took about 100 odd mobile phones and switched on Google Maps and internet, whatever, put it into that tray and started simply pushing that wagon or carrying that wagon or pulling that wagon, however you want to call it. And he actually took it across a bridge. And what did Google think? It thought that, hey, that there is heavy traffic because a lot of coordinates are going in a close distance at this thing. It may be a bumper to bumper traffic, what we normally call it. And therefore, in the Google Maps, it actually identifies Hi, I think there was a small power failure. I think I just lost you folks for a few seconds. Would you please confirm if you're able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. I will just get going. I think I'm still having some audio connectivity issue. I don't know why. If there is something, please drop me a message in this Zoom window. I'm sorry. Okay. So as I was explaining to you, AI is all about how exactly it can simulate. So these, what you notice onto the screen, are one of the classical use cases: speech recognition. Speech recognition. Yeah. So speech recognition is something which you are speaking and the system understands. A simplest example is Alexa, can you play this song for me? Okay, Google, can you do this? Or perhaps, okay, Tally, pass this entry for me. Correct? So that's exactly what we are referring to. Correct? So that, my dear friends, is where speech recognition comes into play. Correct? It's basically conversion of what you speak into text. And let me tell you, the use case of this is something which is very, 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 very high. The number of things which it can do, my dear friends, is mind-boggling. Correct? So let's take this conversation further. Learning. Now, what is learning? What can AI learn? I'll give you a simple example. You are analyzing a bank statement, and there is a description of, let us say, for the first time you're doing a data entry, and for the first time you notice something unique in the narration. And you notice that it is not just unique for the first or the second month of last year, 2021, it is appearing continuously. So what is it normally as a human being we will do? You will go ahead and call up the client. Hey, I noticed something new. Could you please help me in clarifying what this is? Now imagine if the client said this is what it is. We apply that rule for the rest of the transactions. The same thing happens with systems. Those of you using your phone or your iPhone or your Google Assistant, etc. Let's say you call up and say, hey, Google, can you call my mom? Most of us save our mom's name. I mean, most of us save our contact of our mother's name as mom, mother, whatever, amma, whatever it is, right? Ma. Let us say you have saved it as mom and you say, hey Siri or hey Google, can you call up mummy? Now, immediately what it does is it goes and searches and says there is no person by the name mummy. And then it will say, I found what is called as mom. Do you want me to remember mom as mummy? And if you say yes, every time you say call mummy, call ma, whatever it is, it will go back to that person. And that's exactly what simplest example of learning is. And this is a structured learning. This is unstructured learning and a lot more things. Planning. I don't think you need a better example of planning than Google Map. In fact, Google itself advertises, look before you leave in that Google Maps, right? So that's exactly what planning can do. And problem solving. How do I sort of approach a complicated scenario? What are the permutation combinations? And this, my dear friends, is where AI is heading into. Now comes a very, very interesting terminology relating to AI, and that's ML, machine learning. As I told, is the ability of the machine to learn and acquire the knowledge and skill sets. It is cognitive in nature. And what is cognitive? Ability of the machine to think. Correct? And it gives you various evidences based on a predetermined transaction or based on past behavior, and it can transform how you organizations can think. Let me give you a very, very simple example. Today, if you look into most of the smartphones, my dear friends, most of the smartphones, you can probably give it a try. Okay, of course, after a little later after the session, you can make your notes now. Go to your gallery. There is a search icon in your gallery. If you search in your search icon of your gallery, I'm talking about photo gallery. You search your name, your photos would appear. You search your spouse's name or your child's name or your parent's name, photos will appear as long as you have defined who that photo is. Assuming you have not defined, you just scroll up a little, it says photos popularly found, and you click on that person's photo. Obviously, it gives you an option to name, but it'll give you all the photos of that person. How is that happening? It's machine learning, simple machine learning. Now, can this be used in a much more automated in finance? The answer is yes. That's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what procurement tools today are actually doing. Analyzing your transactions, seeing the photograph, and is able to capable of passing entries of its own. Correct? There are tools who actually do that. For instance, Zoho has a feature as a part of their accounting software. You can scan and do a high level. I would not say it will not be 100% accurate, but it is definitely saving the time for it. Machine learning. Correct? It is learning from the information which you give, and more you give, the more and more accurate it becomes. Correct? And this is where you get one shot a comparison of the traditional and the AI based model. In the traditional model, you give an input, which is the data or the program, correct, to the computer, and you get the output. Whereas the AI based model, your data and output is given to the computer, and your output is the program. In other words, you tune the AI so that it can self program. In other words, it is like telling a child what are a few rules, and the child later uses the intelligence and interprets on her or his own based behavior, transaction, what we do, etc. Correct? The best example for this is our kids at home, especially if you have little ones at home, correct, who are probably in the less than 5 to 6 years or 8 years. The way they think and the way they interpret, imagine the same thing is being put into system. That's exactly what happens. And this is a beautiful slide, which I have to acknowledge. I'm not able to recollect from where I picked up. It's a wonderful presentation in one of this webinars across in one of these countries I was attending. And I found it very, very nice and adaptive. The AI technology, what are the building blocks that are enabling companies to derive value? If you broadly look into it, AI can do something to do with data, something to do with processing, something to do with action. And when I use the word data, it is basically analyzing. A simple example is a computer or a machine vision. It is able to see things. It is able to analyze. A simple example is facial recognition. There are tools which are able to detect faces or objects, or you upload certain things and it is asking you to detect some information from it. Machine vision. Speech recognition, I think all I already spoke of. Natural language processing, intent in the text-based command language. Correct? So those are all data. Now comes to processing. What is it that the system is able to do from a processing angle? Information processing. Knowledge, graph, construction, search. A classical example of search is the image which I told you onto your mobile phone, how based on the photographs you're able to pick it up. Next comes learning from data. A simple or a classical example, my dear friends, is autonomous car, Tesla cars. Correct? So learn to drive a car based upon a background, based upon information, based upon what you see. Now, is only that being used? There are a lot of things. For example, machine vision also is being used. When an automated car is driving on its own, let's say a Tesla, it detects an object which is going across the road. And at that point in time, you realize, hey, is there something wrong? Is there something going on? Is there some object jumping? And if the answer to any of this is yes, the car is given an input saying that, hey, this is an object and I need to be a little slow. I was told that one of the features of the car is it can also identify your facial behavior and give you an alert or a small electric shock in case you fall drowsy. Now imagine the features we're talking about learning from data. Planning and exploring agents. Classical example is Google Maps. How do I plan it? How do I explore it? That's where AI is coming into picture. And the last could be action-driven AI. Image generation. You've seen these funny pictures where a cricketer or a sportsman or a movie star Image is changed from male to female just on a fun element. Of course, misuse can also happen. We're not going to look into that. And this is an example of image generation, speech generation, virtual assistant, handling and control. This is what is presumed to be a most challenging thing. AI picking up an object and sort of moving it. Correct. So that is something which is very important. Navigation and movement, which you notice in AI cars. Correct. So that is where action-driven AI insights come into play. And this, if I have to broadly put into picture, AI, there is an element of what is called as machine learning, which encompasses all of this, what you notice over here, knowledge representation, search optimization, etc. And that machine learning is made up of a whole lot of information. And one of that is called deep learning. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning, which permits softwares to train and get used to it. A classical example of a deep learning is what happens in a Tesla car. This is what happened at one of the times. A Tesla car, when it was going on a trial or it was going on a journey in Australian highway, there was one animal which jumped in a Australian highway and reached the other side. The car was a little confused because it had never seen an animal it had never seen an animal jumping on the road that way and go. And if you're in Australia, you find an animal jumping on the road, it is more likely to be a kangaroo. Since Tesla systems were not trained to understand what a kangaroo was. Immediately it gave an alert. They quickly said that this is kangaroo. Please apply the rule of whatever it applies for animals and keep going. That's exactly what deep learning comes into. And of course, I told you there are a lot of things like supervised learning, reinforcement learning, unsupervised learning. I think we should not go into too much of those technical nitty-gritties. This is an excellent image from the Economist Intelligent. What it says is, broadly, wherever you go in this world, AI, 5 broad use cases is where you're using AI. It could be to automate an existing process. An example, you upload a bank statement, it can automatically pass entries by analyzing the transaction. You upload the purchases or GST 2A, it is able to reconcile and say, hey, this is matching in 2A, this is not matching in 2A, gives some bit of intelligence. Please understand, automation and intelligence are fairly two different things. Automation is a rule-based framework. Step 1, step 2, step 3, if this. Intelligence is the system takes an action on its own. Correct? The end point of automation is where the starting point of intelligence can perhaps be. Correct? Next, detecting. I think I spoke of this. Detecting patterns, detecting person's photograph, detecting fake transactions, detecting suspicious behaviors. A whole lot of things are possible, and that's where detecting comes into play. Next comes personalizing. I'm sure all of you would have visited any of these e-commerce websites, and you would have received or you would have seen one photograph of, let's say, a footwear, a sari, a suit, or an apparel, or a mobile phone. And next 2 or 3 days, you find that product following you wherever you went. Correct? And this, let me tell you, my dear friends, is going to go wherever you went, which means personalization is coming into play. How is this personalization coming into play? That is because it is able to detect and it is able to give you certain specific information. Gone are the days where you did bulk marketing. Today it is individual person-to-person marketing. Correct? You can have marketing so very, very, very customized, and that's the order of the day. Correct? And if you look into the last bucket, the last 2 buckets, predicting and of course understanding. I should have spoken of understanding first, but anyways, understanding is more to do a behavior analysis, and this is more to do with past, whereas exactly opposite is predictive, futuristic. Understanding patterns and seeing how you can predict it. All of those gets covered in the space of predicting. Sorry. Now that we got a fair idea of what we're talking about, let's see what the trend post-COVID is. We're talking about technologies which are intelligent technologies, and that's exactly what I call it as AI. AI ML in finance, accounting, blockchain, cryptocurrency, online shopping, robotic deliveries, remote working, contactless payments. So these are all the new era which we are actually noticing, correct? So does it mean that tomorrow every solution is going to have inbuilt AI? I think yes. But you will not even realize, you will think that it is a feature of the product. I'll give you a simple use case. Today, when you buy a phone, a smartphone, just a phone, the moment you say a phone or a mobile phone, it is presumed that the mobile phone is a smartphone. It is presumed that it has a camera. It is presumed that it has an internet browsing capability. It is presumed that it is having a 4G bare minimum, correct? So these are presumptions. So you don't check for these features. Rather, you check how good is the camera quality, how good is the battery life. Many things are presumed. Likewise, the products of the future, it is presumed that there will be an element of AI, and how you're going to use that is a question of time. Right? And this image, my dear friends, indicates what are the various streams and the extent to which AI is actually headed to. We've spoken about most of it. Right? This is just for you to give you an example of machine learning. We're talking about deep learning, predictive analysis, NLP, natural language processing, understanding the natural language. Correct? It can translate. I still remember, a couple of years back, pre-COVID, I had to be in Geneva to make a presentation at the ISACA conference. And obviously, I'd taken a few days of vacation as well because I had been that far. That far, might as well do some bit of personal visit. So when I was going there, one of the things I always prefer is trying to explore how their public transport and system works. And when I saw the board out there, it was written either in German or it was written in French, depending upon which part of Switzerland I was. And obviously, I had difficulty because I'm not accustomed to the language. All that I did is open Google Translate, kept that image, real time, I was able to get the English translation. And I knew what were the times the train was coming. In fact, you'd be surprised. There was a local person who asked me what time the train comes, and I was able to help him and guide him. Correct? Of course, he did not see the board behind me, but I was able to guide it. And I was happy that I was able to do that. And that is where your NLP comes into picture. Translation, classification and clustering, information extraction, all of this. Correct? And of course, on the other side, you have vision, robotics, and various things on that side. Taking this a little more further, this is what I said, where from the era of no AI, we are moving into an era where AI coupled with deep learning. Basic data, diagnostic, automation is one bucket. Cognitive is where AI comes into picture. Doing predictive, prescriptive is where machine learning can play. And last comes deep learning, where it can do much more beyond our human vision or human uh, visibility. Again, in general types of AI, this is again a little bit of theoretical. Based on the capability, you can probably call them as strong or weak or narrow AI. You have the general or the super AI. General AI is something, there's something very specific, no specific use case. It could be generic use like your Alexa. Weak or narrow, it could be something only for a particular purpose. Correct? Super AI is something which is, I would still say, it's theoretical. Correct? And based on functionality, you can probably call it as a reactive machines, limited memory, theory of mind. All these things are functional use cases. This is very important. What are the possible AI platforms? Correct? As we speak now, these are a few of the popular AI platforms. IBM Watson. Okay, you can in fact go and give a try on this particular platform, IBM Watson. Okay, there are a few use cases available which is free. Now, what IBM Watson does, my dear friends, is a simple AI-based engine which can hear you or analyze data, and it can give you results. Quite interesting, correct? And it was told that this IBM Watson, was able to predict court judgments much better than the advocates or the lawyers themselves, right? So these are interesting things which is actually taking place. Google DeepMind with the help of TensorFlow is yet another interesting thing. Microsoft Cognitive Services, including Cortana, Amazon has AWS AI-based services, and FB has Facebook Learner Flow and related things. So a bunch of these things, my dear friends, are where AI platforms are actually coming into play. And let's not forget chatbots. If you order something on Swiggy today and you message what the status is, there is some person who's replying. That is not a human being, it's a robot. Correct? Few years back, when you were chatting on the social media with a person, we used to ask, when you're chatting, you're having a pen pal. But later on, from an information security standpoint, the question was, are you chatting to a guy or a girl, or who is somewhere in disguise? Correct? Now, or probably taking forward 3 to 5 years ahead, you are chatting with some person. The question to be asked is that a human being or not? Correct? So this is where the tuning test becomes very handy. Alan Turing, way back, I think in the 1950s, came up with a very, very interesting concept where he said, if you're conversing with a person and if you're not able to identify whether that person, whoever is replying, is whether a human being or a machine, that means the system has set to pass the Turing test. And that's quite an interesting thing, right? And that's where chatbots today has gone beyond a person's imagination. Correct? And let me tell you, I've seen various companies, including some firms' websites, CF firms' website, including that of mine. We have chatbots built into it, very basic chatbot. You chat, it is able to respond, and it gives you a few basic information. Correct? And let me tell you, AI and speech recognition is something which is massive, correct? Technology powered voice interfaces. And with the advancement of I think most of the products tomorrow, or most of the products of the future, will have an element of AI built into it. Again, some bit of perspectives, advantages and disadvantages of AI. There's obviously error reduction. Difficult aspects are easy to explore. Daily application is possible. Digital assistance, repetitive jobs. Repetitive jobs make difference. And it does not take any breaks. Correct? On the flip side, it's a little more expensive. Correct? It cannot replicate human beings. No improvisation with experience, no original creativity. As I keep on saying, the AI system is as intelligent as the developer who's actually created it. Correct? And possible unemployment, we do not know. Too early for us to commit. So now that you've got a fair perspective of how, what AI is, etc., let's quickly jump into the bigger question. How is AI used in our profession and what are the typical use cases? Now let's talk about a few financial services related use cases. First, fraud detection. Now, financial service providers, they have a larger responsibility of protecting the clients. It could be bank, it could be NBFCs, credit card companies, etc. Okay, I'll increase my volume a little. Yeah, so financial institutions typically have a greater responsibility of protecting their clients against fraudulent activities. Now, for this, companies or banks need to understand patterns. They need to see how analytics or how transactions can be predicted, how machine learning algorithms can be used. And these are being used. I'll show you one use case a little later. Correct? Next comes risk management. Risk management is a very, very, very large use case on how credit worthiness or the traditional domains can perhaps be predicted. There is something called as distress model prediction. What is it? When can somebody go into a liquidation? That's an interesting study which is going on. Correct? Understanding the market trends. Okay, I'll give you a simple example. There's a recent unfortunate situation in Afghanistan, which is having an impact on metal. Okay, because Afghanistan is said to have a fairly large share of iron ore deposits. Now, can this impact the metal market? Quite possible. Now, what are the repercussions relating to that? That is where your AI ML can come into play. correct? For that, systems have to understand. It has to take the information. It should be in a position where it is able to take inputs. I hope you're getting the point, right? Let's go to next. Something which is very, very favorite of everybody. Investment predictions, correct? Based upon various things, the machine learning fund managers can identify market changes much before or much earlier. There's a trend in sell-off. For instance, the last week in the stock market was a typical bear market, correct? Of course, it's a small, reaction in the bull market, a small dip or fall, etc. But be that as it may, has there been some change which has taken place? The answer is yes, correct? It can identify the changes much earlier than what it is possible. Customer service. Machine learning enabled chatbots can identify what the customer behavior is. A happy customer, a frustrated customer. A simple example could be, the feedback which you receive after the Swiggy or the Zomato order, or your Ola or Uber ride, or your Oyo or Airbnb stay. Correct. So those are all linked to what is called as customer service chatbots related. Then is a bunch of things which we already are using in our offices. Digital assistants. They can perform their job with greater ease than ever. Google's Allo, Apple's Siri, Microsoft Cortana, I just gave you an example. Marketing. Today, marketing is one domain which requires significant usage of these, systems. Now you must be wondering how marketing is relating to a financial use case. Now, it could be a new model of fintech world which is coming up, which is called buy now, pay later. And it is believed it's going to be a huge market in the days to come. Correct? Likewise, you have various buckets where you're able to analyze the web activity, mobile phone activity, ad campaigns, and make a difference. The list is endless. Algorithmic trading. My dear friends, this is one such domain where extensively deciding how the buy or the sell quantity can be made. In US, there is something called as the Renaissance Medallion Fund. Now, what this can do is, or what it has been doing in the past, is that it is being able to predict the market movements, and it is being done or managed by a bunch of mathematicians, not even stock experts, mathematicians who have developed that model, who are able to understand and analyze what things are. Process automation, interpretation of documents, analyzing of data, having intelligent robots which can actually execute activities. The list is endless. Right? These are a few examples of companies who have built in AI-based applications, a few large use cases. JP Morgan. Now they came up with a concept called coin. Now what it does is, using NLP, it scans through the data and analyzes all the complicated legal documents and gives you what are the core or the most important text within that. Correct? Which would typically take hours of labor hours, it is able to do it much, much, much more faster. Imagine if I had this agreement with me, and as an auditor, I was doing audit of any of these companies like a quick service restaurant or a QSR industry, right? It could be Domino's, it could be Fasus, it could be, let's say, Bikaner Wala, or for that matter, even your KFC or McDonald's. So they have a fairly large presence. So I need to decide on the implication of an accounting standard. Let's just say recognition of leases, lease expenditure, you know, how operating lease versus finance lease, some sort of a classification as per IFRS, Ind AS, local GAAP. Now, is it practical for me to analyze every agreement? The answer is no. Here, with a click of a button, it is able to analyze and give you the extracts of whatever is necessary. Wells Fargo uses an AI-driven Facebook chatbot through Facebook Messenger to communicate with users. Security and financial services company are being analyzed to detect or multiple cyber threats. Let's take a simple use case in the AI ML banking industry setup. That will probably help you demystify this. So let us say there is a bank account where there are multiple credits or debits, which is in a suspicious manner. Now, how do I decide what is suspicious? How do I decide which are not suspicious? These are just a few examples of the rules fed into it. If it's a salary account, you're having credits in the account other than salary credit. Okay, there is a huge increase in the cash to non-cash transaction ratios. Many transactions are going, or the payments are coming from a single account, the payment goes to a single account. There's a huge burst in deposits or withdrawals. There's an unusual application for demand drafts against cash. Of course, now that has been prohibited. Transactions are too high or low value in relation to the customer's profile. Now, what the AIML algorithm does predicts the behavior based on this, based on historical information, based on what happens, based on the transactions, etc., etc. Right? So this is a simple example. Now what normally happens in a query model versus an AI model. In a query model, you're asking a query, you're just giving an input saying, hey, give me all cases where customer balance has reduced more than 500% or 1000%. 50,000 to 5,000, the change is 9 times, 900% variation. Now it will flag this as an issue, but for all you know, the customer gets a salary on, let's say, day one. Within the next 5 days, his entire amount is withdrawn with various reasons. It could be EMI, it could be home loan, etc. And his balance comes down to a bare minimum. And this is the way in which his behavior is. Now, under the traditional model, if I say give me all cases where the variation is more than 900%, it will flag this as an error. Whereas that is not the truth. That's exactly where it can come in. Correct? So if I simply use the rule that the closing balance of the previous day is greater than the previous balance by 500%, here I'm getting a 900% variance. Correct? Whereas in reality, it's a false positive. This is where AI can play a much bigger role. Hyper local customization, meaning customize each and every product, customize each and every person, profile each and every person, and that's where it can happen. An example, what you notice into this image gives you a very good clarity on how it works. There's a transaction which is fed into the system. There are certain rules which it goes through. Based upon which it identifies what could be perhaps a red flag or something which is good to go. If there is something which is a red flag, you further go ahead and investigate and decide how you should close the case. Correct? So it starts with historical transactions, segmentation and profiling, alerting what is good, what is bad, and what is ugly, investigating, and then comes the element of case management. So let me tell you, a whole lot of these things are actually being done. Correct? The first part of it is detection. The second part of it is a fraud management. This is one classical use case which I could probably relate when it comes to the banking setup. So taking this conversation further, I've just given a banking BFSI use case so that you're able to get a fair bit of idea on how it works. Taking this conversation further, you could also have a salary account where there are multiple cash deposits, correct? And all the withdrawals has happened to a particular pattern. An example could be 49, 49, 49, 5 transactions of 49,000 deposited, correct? Amounting to 2.5 lakh, close to, rounding it off, correct? And the withdrawal happens through a particular demand draft, correct? Now this is a red flag. Now in the conventional system, these things are extremely difficult for anybody to identify. Correct? And look at the other case in a different account. There is a 49,000 deposit, 49,000 withdrawal, 49,000 deposit, 49,000. And if you notice that all the withdrawals are in basket traders, all the deposits are in the form of cash. So there is something suspicious. There's another classical example of how an ATM transaction coupled with geospatial data. In a span of 2 to 3 minutes, there was a withdrawal in Bangalore, there was a withdrawal in Delhi, there was another withdrawal in Jayanagar or someplace in Bangalore. So you can understand in a span of few seconds, how is it something can go there and come back? Either some credit debit card has been compromised, somewhere there's some issue, correct? And the timing, the transaction has happened at the same time. can perhaps give an alert or a highlight. Or there was one particular case, this was something which happened, where all the cash deposits used to happen somewhere in, Bombay, Ahmedabad, or somewhere on the western side. And all the cash withdrawal used to happen in the eastern region. And in fact, they plotted all of this into a map. And all of them indicated a movement. And when they zoomed in very carefully, all of them took place at ATMs, which were in railway station. When they did a further analysis, they got to know that this person who was a fraudster was moving from a location somewhere in West Bengal towards the northeastern, which is towards Bangladesh. Now you can imagine there's a classical case where money laundering was attempted, where people wanted to withdraw funds. And imagine these sort of analysis built into the system. The outcome is something beyond our control. Right? Another example could be a phishing attack. Normally, if there's a phishing attack, what happens? Somebody gets to know your account login credentials. Immediately, what will he do? He will take the username. First thing he will do is change your profile password or change your password or change your mobile phone number. Once the mobile phone number is done, he will immediately add a beneficiary, transfer money to the beneficiary. So if you're noticing the series of activities happening within a few minutes, that means it is a phishing attack. Obtain customer user ID password, change the static customer data such as mobile phone, email number, then add a beneficiary. Within the beneficiary is activated, transfer majority of the amount. Now, when you are noticing this sort of a behavior, it could be a phishing pattern. Correct. So that's exactly where these sort of transactions can come into, and that is where AI-based engines can help you solve a whole lot of problems. Now, what is the impact on accounting and auditing, right? Shouldn't we be knowing that as well? Because unless we understand what is the impact on accounting and auditing, it doesn't make sense, right? So how exactly, this further translates into what we calling as impact on AI. Sorry, just give me. If I speak from an accounting and audit space, right? Typically in an accounting space, what you notice is where there are, interesting use cases which are actually being built up, correct? It could be something relating to, let us say, the way in which these solutions being used. For instance, you can notice on the screen, there is a company by name BDO, okay, one of these big 10 firms. They're using an app called as the Lexi app. And what is the purpose of they using the Lexi app? It is basically to ensure that, these solutions or these engines, whatever we are speaking of, correct, are able to analyze and see what is a pattern. KPMG has an AI-based toolkit called Ignite, and it is coupled with IBM Watson. So most of these solutions, if you notice, fairly those people who are well versed with technology and digital data have invested. But the question is of only time where it will come into much acceptable or much affordable prices. Now, how does it impact audit? What is it that I need to be worried about? What is it that I need to be concerned of? Correct, and that is where AI you can use it in risk assessment. I'll show you one use case. You will get to know how I use MS Excel coupled with AI for my use case of Excel analysis, right? So that is a very interesting thing which I'll show you. It can give you insight. It can give you some bit of contribution on what the future is or what the pattern is. It can give you an assurance to the management that there are multi-risks, which has, there is a relating to the reliability of underlying algorithm. What if the algorithm itself has gone wrong? How good can I have an effective risk management or a controller governance process? What is the fraud investigation process which I have in mind? So a whole lot of these things could be impact on audit. So where do you think AI can be used? It can be used for data mining. It could be used as an expert system, ML with pattern recognition. or for that matter, even a neural network, just like our human body is interconnected with various neurons. The AI/ML is interconnected and gets inputs which is analyzed, correct? Coupled with IoT or some sort of a device, some sort of a technology which is there. Okay, let's look into a few major categories where AI/ML can come into play. First, general purpose or of some sort of a predictive analysis case, correct? On how it could be very generic. Second could be a classical use case of expense reporting. I told you Zoho expense, correct? Where it uses AI ML based algorithms, you're able to do it, correct? There are a bunch of solutions. Next, debt collection, personalized and automated collection, so that I'm able to improvise the debt collection pattern, giving points or giving some score or rewarding somebody for repaying early and not waiting until the due date, correct? Regulatory and compliance. Most of the credit card companies use this to identify suspicious behaviors. A simple example is you've never used your credit card outside of India, and all of a sudden there is a payment which happens in dollars for some XYZ. It gives you alert. Or it may also have say that I have never seen a person doing this behavior. I will do a two-factor authentication for this sort of a transaction. So that's where regulatory fraud detection. Underwriting, identifying the risk exposure of every customer, through machine learning, understanding your potential customers history from structured unstructured data, determining lending patterns. A whole bunch of these things is something quite interesting, right? Next, credit scoring, direct lending. AI is used to identify the scoring patterns, how credit card history can be predicted. Personal assistance, I think we spoke of. Quantitative asset management, if you have to do faster trading decisions. Managing insurance policy, giving some sort of a digital risks and quotations. For instance, today there are companies who give you quotations much quicker on the digital space. ACO, Digital Insurance, or these companies, based on the information you give, they're able to judge, correct? And they're also able to see what is your behavior, what is the history. Next, sentimental analysis. They use AI very efficiently to research and measure your sentiment. What exactly is the behavior? A simple example, I've known one particular solution. In one of the conversations I was just hearing from one of the learned members, he said there is an AI solution available based on the conversation with the investor and the investee, or the trade calls which take place before or after the results are announced. It is able to identify the wordings he or she is using and predict whether there is some sort of a behavior or a pattern, correct? Sentimental analysis. Data robots or robot advisory, correct? Today, all of us require some sort of an advice when it comes to personal finance. So these bots are actually doing it, correct? Payable and receivable processing. We spoke of it, right? Your finance clerks are basically being done. Expense management, correct? It could be for machine able to read all your receipts, what is the cost, what is the alerts, determining what the bonuses are, the accruals, correct? Unbiased bonus accruals calculations can be done based on the available system or predictive data, correct? Then comes this monthly, quarterly cash flows, giving your cash flows, predicting it, where it is, what we stand, risk assessment for process. I'm telling you, the list is endless. The list is endless, correct? So this gives you a perspective of how these things can be used in us, correct? So now comes a very pragmatic question. Sir, ये सब अच्छा है सुनने के लिए, where do I get started from? What is it that I get doing? Correct. So how do I adopt AI in my office? Right. So there is a whole lot of provisions where you can use it for a strategic or a competitive advantage. For example, learning, tailor making products, ensuring that the presence is across the world, smarter decision making, or giving new value propositions. Right. So that's something which is quite possible. But what is the biggest challenge? Data. We do not have the required quality of the data. Today, everybody is literally struggling. Only for the sake of calling, they are a digitized company. But reality, a lot of work is in a very, very unstructured fashion. Then comes operations. Many valuable applications require much more deeper integration. Correct? It's just not a click or a touch. Correct? Talent. AI fundamentally redefines the roles in financial institutions. So that is another very important point to keep in mind. And comes regulation. There's a regulatory framework built on increasing or an outdated model, or you need to decide how the law changes. There are data privacy laws across the globe, like what is called as the GDPR in the Europe, what is called as the CCPA in California, and things like that. So where do you think are the professional opportunities like, correct? And where do you think it can actually come up? We have time to automate and de-skill people Apologies once again. I think there was some technical glitch there. So AI in Microsoft Suite, correct? The concept of design ideas, my dear friend, is something which is excellent. Okay. For instance, you can notice that I am showing you a PowerPoint screen where if I just say that, hey, design, correct? And just say simple, effective, purpose driven. I'm just giving you some basic features, and you find one tab called design ideas in this extreme right? You can notice here, it is not activated because of me sharing the entire screen. There is obviously a challenge out there. And what this design idea can do is that it can give you various cover images for this entire screen. And that is something which is possible, correct? Second, live captions, quick starter, all these things are few features which are there in the AI based feature of Microsoft Suite. Then comes your Excel, which is one of the most powerful solution, correct? And today most of us day in and day out are using Excel, right? So what I'm going to do is, let me see if I'm able to show you one simple use case on how it can do wonders. All right, so I'm just quickly opening a simple data set. I just have some basic data out here. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to click on this icon called Analyze Data. Now what Excel is going to do, this is under the Home tab, Analyze Data. I'm using Office 365. This is available in Office 2019 or Excel 2000, Office 365 or Excel 2019. What it does is, it goes through this data and it automatically gives certain interesting patterns. It makes various results. Okay, for instance, what is the sales amount by product type? If I just want it, I just have to click on Insert Pivot and I have this table ready. I need not do any rocket science. I have my product name, I have my color code, what is my grand total, which probably may take 30 seconds for me to generate the pivot. It does it in a click of a button. Correct? Let's go further. I want to put a chart based on product type. Here it is. Correct? I want to go with another suggestion. Let us say, what are or who is the user ID who accounts for majority of the sales amount? here it is. This is the guy who's done majority of my sales. I go a little more further. What is the frequency of the sales amount? I insert a chart and I get a very, very nice chart. Let me just expand this. I get to know how much of my sales has taken place by various grouping. 20,000 to 60,000, I know this is my sales. 60,000 to 1 lakh, I know this is my sales. 180 to 220, this is my sales, and here it is. Now I can do stratify. There's nothing but stratification of my data, and I can do stratified sampling based on this. Not just that, I get a lot of interesting insights. And as though this is not sufficient, I can query, I can ask questions. For example, give me insights for sales amounts. It is doing some interesting analysis. Look at this, a beautiful chart. Let's say what it is. For region North, sales amount has 5 outliers. A beautiful analysis. A beautiful analysis says for region North, my sales amount has got 5 outliers, 5 exceptions, correct? And it gives me where these outliers are. It is on the 5th of April 2019. It is on, let us say, something on 24/6. And all that I have to do is now I need to change this and see what this behavior is. It is giving me interesting analysis, correct? Of course, this is something which has been done. Likewise, look at this. For product type Google Pixel, sales amount has 4 outliers. User ID SA accounts for majority. For product type OnePlus, sales amount has 6 outliers. For the color silver, sales amount has outliers on so and so dates, and lot of interesting things. And that's exactly what system can do on its own. And it is not just that, my dear friends, it can do much more. There is something called conversational analytics, where you can simply ask a question. For example, which is the color for invoice number 1002? Or how many colors are there? Right? I'm just asking a question. It says there are 9 distinct colors. Replace this with how many users are there? There are 11 distinct users. Now you just have to figure out, is there some sort of a username which is to sort of repeat it, correct? Of course, it has limitations. For example, how many duplicate invoice number now here it may or may not be able to do it. Look at this distribution of invoice number where the cell count of invoice number is greater than 1. It gives me one very, very interesting statistics and says, hey, these are all the invoice numbers which are much greater than 1, and there is a blank cell which is 3 times. Now, all that you have to do is go ahead, fix these questions or queries. Now, how easy was that for you to do the audit? Correct? And that is where, my dear friends, a whole lot of benefit of AI-driven analytics comes into picture. AI-driven Excel is something which is mind-boggling. In this analyzed data, let me tell you, is just mind-boggling. Correct? You just go ahead, have to explore it. Correct? You can probably just say, give me sales summary by month. Correct? Here it is. By month, it is giving you the sales summary. Correct? And what more do you want? You can probably top it up with a chart and bar chart. Correct? Or maybe you may have to probably look into it. And look at this beauty. When I've given this, it also has written a formula out here, in case if you notice. Correct? The formula is automatically written over here, and you don't even have to bother. It automatically gets refreshed even if you make a small change. And each of this, you can store it in your work paper. So once you get data, go through the data and spend time in delegating this work to various stakeholders, right? And the other thing, this is the natural language queries, ideas I told you. Data from pictures, another feature which is available in Excel, but only on the cloud version. Flash fill is another very, very exciting thing which you can fill it up. Let me see if I can show you that. For instance, I just want this 2 letters to appear, okay? Or let us say, I just want the months to appear over here. Okay, I just use the word month, and I just use the word April. I use the word April, and I just do Control E. It is actually sort of searching and giving me the pattern. Now here again I have to say April I want. Now it is analyzed and given me all the months. And if I go down, Okay, obviously it is done March because it is thought that I want April for all the fields. I just come down until I get a May field. Okay, of course the volume is fairly high, so therefore it's taking longer. And now what I do is I take May. Right? And here again I type May. Now I am training the system, hey, whatever happens, give me this particular month, and I'm doing a control E, correct? Now the system understood that, hey, this gentleman wants the month or the behavior. Now it is able to fine tune it. Of course, it will take some time because I have to train the data. Now, whatever formatting I need to do, I can do it. If I want to split this text into 3 cells, say for example, I want SIL, I want REI. Look at this. The moment I type few text, automatically it tells me what is it that you want to split. Let us say I want over here for uniqueness perspective, INV underscore 1001, INV underscore 1002, and I just do a control E. Now everything it is automatically filled. Look at this. Now this is what is called as flash fill, yet another powerful function driven by AI. Correct? Word has again multiple features. I'll probably show you that. Right? This, according to me, is a very, very powerful feature, and it is called as dictate. Do you notice that? A simple example of text getting converted to, words or spoken English converted into text. A very simple use case, correct? And if you're using a resume or if you've created a profile, there is something called as what is called as a resume or a profile, which can actually you can do, correct? And it goes and reviews on its own, correct? The dictation read aloud is another powerful feature. You can just go to review, or I think this is the CV assistant, where if you have a CV, it will actually give you what are the features or what are the suggestions. And it has one other feature, which is dictate, or rather read aloud, and this is here. If I click on read aloud, it is actually reading this. Correct? It's actually reading this particular text so that you're able to get what exactly is this information, right? Of course, you may not have been able to hear, but that is exactly what it does. Then comes Outlook. You also have similar features: email reader, scheduler, translate. I spoke of Cortana, where it has a feature where it can plan and tell you, hey, what to do, when you have to do, and things like that. These are a few of the AI-enabled tools for the purpose of a better decision making, correct? It can probably help you to take decisions in terms of accounting. It can automate your finance operations. Vic.ai is another policy which can accounting tool which can help you out to analyze, correct? And then you have Zoho, which has a lot of very, very interesting features. And Zoho and ICAI have a tie-up where Zoho Finance Suite of products is for free for 3 years, or maybe now 2.5 years because it's already been 6 months. Go ahead and explore. And Zoho has what is called a ZIA, which is a Zoho Intelligent Assistant, I think they call it as. Quite powerful. It can analyze and give data on its own, correct? It can do pattern analysis and a lot of interesting things. And these are a few things which is actually coming up into various solutions. It could be cloud accounting, it could be contextual integration, connected banking, OCR, AI, ML, voice interface recognition, automation. My dear friends, all these are interesting factors which is actually coming into play. Correct? And things like these features are there in terms of Zoho Book, which can do the traditional accounting as well as give you that benefit of integration. I'm just giving one example of Zoho Books because they also have it's a Make in India product. Their data center is secure. They are GDPR compliant, 100% secure as per most of their reports and security certifications they have. And more importantly, they also have an MOU for us to go ahead and explore that with our ICAI, correct? And from a legal perspective, these are a few AI-enabled solutions. What is called as Kira. There is something called Luminous, LogX, eBrevia, correct? Lex. These are all a few examples of solutions which are actually available where it can help you from a AI-driven perspective. And then you have MindBridge, Mindbridge is an AI auditor, the world's first AI auditor. Of course, it's a little expensive. In India, similar solutions are being developed. I'm trying to work on a couple of them, in fact, to see where it possibly goes. Correct. So yes, the last part of it is applications in fintech and where we actually see some sort of a value. Correct. It could be in terms of, let us say, fraud detection. There's a company called Data Robot. You have risk management. It's called Kensho ISD. Investor predictions, AlphaSense. Customer service. It's called Casito. Lending card, Flexi loans. Insurance, CoverFox is using it. Digital assistants, chatbots. Marketing, Data Robot again. Cybersecurity, Darktrace. Underwriting, Zest Finance. It's another very exciting fintech company. Algo trading, process automation, UI, automation edge, these companies are coming up with it. And for various anti-money laundering initiatives as well, it is actually coming into the space. So these are of course post-COVID, where you can see a few AI-based engines actually coming into play. So now that we have got a fair bit of idea, where do you see our role? Our role is multiple. Opportunity to automate and de-skill time-consuming repetitive jobs. Minimize burdens, maximize the benefit, and CS with their domain knowledge and expertise, you can create a lot of relevant learning algorithms. In fact, this Excel sheet where you saw with ideas, it was just a simple instance or a simple use case. I've been using this since last 3 to 4 months. And every time I open that sheet is able to analyze something new. Why? Because I've been training it with more and more data. And that's exactly what will happen. If I give you the same Excel, same data set, it will not give you the same results because it requires to be trained. Correct? So CAs who have the domain knowledge and expertise, you need to create, or we need to sit with stakeholders and create relevant algorithms. We need to work with AI programmers to see where it can go. Learn the patterns of behavior, because the CF of the future will need to know about functional knowledge as much as he understands finance. He also has to understand technology. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I'm really glad that the last 1.5 hours, I was able to take you through an interesting set of discussion and thought process on what AI is and how it can have an impact. I will have a few questions which you can probably put it in the chat window. I'll be happy to take them. Because of a technical glitch, I'm not able to hear you out clearly. Please bear that in mind. I'll be happy to discuss. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. Over to the organizers.
Yes, sir. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Am I audible to you now?
Yeah, Vaishali.
Okay. So, sir, basically, first of all, it was a very nice session because, artificial intelligence and machine learning is basically the future. And since, always on our toes for the skill upgradation. So, firstly, let me jump onto the questions because since we are not having much of the time. So the first question which every young CA, attending this session or experienced CA attending this session is have in their mind is basically that what all courses are available, and to be very specific, what all short-term courses are available in order to get there in the market, to be actually be able to survive in the market with artificial intelligence and machine learning coming in.
I'm sorry in case you've asked any question to me. I think there is some audio issue with my laptop. You can just drop it in the chat window. I'll be able to quickly respond.
I'm just writing it. I'm writing it in the chat window. Okay.
Yeah, that'll be handy. And I hope I finished well within time. Okay, what are the courses available short term to be specific in market for learning and AI? Okay, let me be very specific in this. Thanks, Vaishali, for typing it out. Sorry for the inconvenience. So let me put it up very simple. Whenever you're looking into any technology domain, divided under two. A is the pure technology, where you go very deep and depth into it. B is the functional knowledge of technology, coupled with where you can do and seeing how the use cases can come into play. If you look into core technology, you are actually sitting with developers and working with them. Example, you are perhaps becoming a data scientist and writing AI ML programs, correct? You need to know Python. You need to use tools like Nine, correct? They have these inbuilt features which can actually be used. Python is the language of AI and ML today, the most basic version. There are much more things which is there, correct? So if you have to go into it, I think you have to change your stream and go fully into that. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking into it is maybe you need not go to that level or that level of intricacies, just touch the surface. In that case, you need to know functional expertise coupled with small or a limited amount of technological knowledge. That's exactly what people like me do. We don't go into the depth of AI and ML programming because I have programmers who can do it, because that is not my role. I've clearly understood. I can go into it. It's not that I cannot. It's just that I have to jump into that space. But today, it becomes all the more easier for me to get developers to do that. So what is my role? Understand the functional domains, correct? So courses are plenty. YouTube today is the biggest university. YouTube today is the biggest university. Tons and tons of data is available, right? As you rightly pointed out, right? You yourself are doing courses on Python and R. That's exactly where we are, correct? So you can go ahead and specialize into it, but always understand the role which we are going to play. Are we going to be the tech developer who's going to sit and write codes and commands? Or am I going to be the person who's going to direct what it is supposed to be doing? For me, a person who understands any of these programming languages is as good as a person who is sitting on the pilot or the driver's seats. He knows how to drive the vehicle or how to take the flight. But what is the destination? What are you going to do with that? How are you going to analyze? How are you going to reach? All those parts of it is where our domain expertise comes in. Correct? So I personally see three possibilities. Possibility number one is where you go core into tech, small amount of functional knowledge, you will be in charge more of delivery and execution teams. High functional knowledge, very limited awareness of it, you will be able to get a macro picture of things. A combination of both, which is something which I recommend, at least some basic analysis of how AI, computing, terminologies, etc. work. You can decide where you want to deploy AI. You can decide how to audit AI, and there are multiple options. I hope I answered your question. Yep. So it's a combination which you have to decide. I have known people who want to go completely into the depth of it. Go ahead, nothing wrong into it. Correct? But you need to understand where you want to draw the demarcation. What is it that you want to do? Do you want to be a programmer sitting and writing programs and commands? The choice is yours. You may probably have fun in it. Correct? You might be thinking, sir, if that is the case, why did I do CA? Please, the domain expertise, what we have acquired, cannot be replaced. Correct? It's like, a doctor knows the entire way in which the body works. If there is a startup who's developing AI-based healthcare products, they need to have AI programmers. They need to also have doctors, because doctors are the person who's going to decode and tell you how the body works. The AI programmer will not know. Based on the information what he receives from doctors, he actually programs it. Maybe he may understand medical terminologies better. Correct? So that's an added advantage. But the role is still there. So that is where we need to decide. As I told you, the three layers. How can the unfair advantage be given? This is a very million-dollar question. Typically, ethical issues in AI. I've known cases, or I've heard of cases where AI has taken biased decisions in favor of a few, in favor of the white, in the favor of black, and all these cases. Those are all interesting cases which is going to develop. And we are all in this market together. Nobody has a solution for it. But there are certain models which has come up to identify the fairness of AI. Correct. For example, the Tamil Nadu government came up with a very, very nice policy, the Tamil Nadu e-governance cell on AI implementation policy. A very good document. You can just go and pick it up and read it. Likewise, our own Niti Aayog came up with a system, a consultation paper on AI. A good read for most of us. Go ahead and pick it up. It talks about how you can look into unfair means, how ethical issues can be looked into, and this is an evolving area. It is a question of time. This is where role of us as auditors can come into play. Correct? The next question is, can AI be conquered? $1 million question. Nobody has an answer for it. As we speak now, it looks like a Terminator movie, but too early for us to take a call. I think over a point in time it will happen. But because please understand, today AI is at a very, very native stage. Very, very native stage.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for taking up the
I hope I've
question.
answered most of your questions. And
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now I would request CA Dipendra Chopra ji to, give a word of thanks to sir.
Thank you, Vaishali. Now, friends, the second session of today VCM was very unique and fruitful. And detailed information has been shared by CA Narsimanji on artificial intelligence and explain how adopt and use the artificial intelligence in our profession for accounting and auditing purpose. On the behalf of the CPE committee of ICAI, Ratlam branch of ICAI, and all the members who participated in this session, I extend many thanks to CA Narsimanji for that. Surely all the members will benefit at large from this. And with the help of artificial intelligence, we will be able to serve to the society and clients in the better and more efficient and effective manners. On the behalf of Ratlam branch, I also extend my gratitude to our Honorable Chairperson of CP Committee, Sri Kemisha Soni, and Honorable Vice Chairman Sri Nandaji, to take out time for his busy schedule to grace the VCM and inspiring and encouraging us with the word of wisdom. Special thanks to CA Vaishali and all the CA members, participants from across the country to make the VCM successful. I congratulate and must thanks to the organizing team of VCM CP committee of ICAI for working hard to make this VCM successful. Once again, thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone.